Hello, everyone. I am your host, Kai of the Reunion Podcast. This is episode 30, and joining me again today is my incredible co-host, Vyzz. How are you doing, Vyzz?
I'm grand. Thank you very much, and welcome back, everybody, after this long break.
Yeah.
I'm currently on vacation at home, unfortunately, but still vacation, this time off, no work for 2 weeks. So I can just focus on gaming, on CCO, and whatever tickles my fancy. And yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to say, we're back, everybody.
Yeah.
Because we went on hiatus for a little bit. I'm still on vacation, but I took a trip just to visit my family and friends back home for about 2 weeks. And then I needed a break as well, obviously, like from the podcast and everything a few weeks before that. So it's been incredible, but I'm just super excited to be back again, Vyzz, sitting here with you today to record another episode of the podcast.
Yeah, it's really, really good to be back. And I'm also very excited for continuing this podcast, and especially this one. You'll see shortly, or here.
All right, guys. So the best way to support us here is to like, sub, and share the podcast. If you haven't already done so, hop on over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. You can also subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're on all of the streaming podcast platforms. All right, guys. So today we are so excited because we have two amazing special guests here for today's episode. We have Chris and Haney here from First Encounter Podcast with us today. So welcome, guys.
Hello.
Thank you so much for having us. This is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So excited to be here.
Yeah.
So for today's episode, we'll be chatting with you guys all about Final Fantasy VII OG. So we'll get to know you guys a little bit better by diving into your history and experience with Final Fantasy as a series and Final Fantasy VII specifically. We'll also be discussing Final Fantasy VII Remake very lightly because Haney has not played it yet. So we're trying to avoid all spoilers at all costs. And also, Vyzz and I have some questions for you, Haney, about Final Fantasy VII OG and I guess your hopes and dreams for Final Fantasy VII Remake. And we've got more as well. All right, guys. So before we start today, I just wanted you guys both to introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about First Encounter Podcast.
You want to take this, Hanny? You want to go first?
Yeah, I'd love to. You know me. I definitely like to be in charge. Hi. So first off, thank you guys so much for having us on the show. Really excited. Really looking forward to the day where I get to listen to your podcast and not have to worry about spoilers. But in the meantime, I appreciate the fact that you let me on, even though I'm not able to listen to it super often. But yeah, I'm Hanny. I am one of the co-hosts for the First Encounter Podcast. We are a video game adventure podcast where we, I think our current model is we are taking turns playing games that are considered, classic hits that we've never played before. So for season 1, Chris had me play his favorite video game of all time, which was Final Fantasy VII, the OG, which I had never once touched before in my life.
Wow.
Good thing that this changed.
Yeah, it was a huge rift in our life. And I'll let Chris talk a little bit more about why he specifically started First Encounter. I do have to give him all of the credit for getting us off the ground and into people's ears, whether they wanted us there or not.
I don't know about that. Hi, I'm Chris. I'm the wind in Henny's sails, if you will. And yeah, we started First Encounter because I've known Hanny for 20 plus years, and he's just never played my favorite video game of all time, which is Final Fantasy VII, until recently. So I knew that I had to just share his first experience with the world, and here we are, almost 2 years later.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Just beautiful.
That's amazing. And you just finished, right, Hanny? You just finished it a few weeks ago, or?
We, I think, wrapped recording at the end of May for Final Fantasy VII OG. So that is officially finished. I spoiler alert, beat Sephiroth, which was very exciting. Which was something I didn't even know if that was an action that happened, prior to a year ago. So yeah, back in May, we wrapped up OG. We are currently about to come back with our season 2, where Chris is taking the reins of playing one of my favorite games for the first time, Majora's Mask, which is a Legend of Zelda game. But we will we'll save that for another time to talk about, as we're here to talk about Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
And we have started putting out some content on our Patreon. Where I am playing the rest of the compilation now. So I just switched from finishing up the Final Fantasy VII OG through Steam to now playing Crisis Core.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm about I think maybe 6 hours into Crisis Core. So I pretty much know all there is to know about Crisis Core too.
Yeah, I would say so.
That's awesome. And I love the premise of your podcast, because it's like you guys, you're friends, and Haney, you haven't experienced Final Fantasy VII before. So, having Chris, like you've already played it, obviously it's your favorite game, and then seeing your friend go through the process that you went through, I guess, like we're going to talk about it in a second here about your history with Final Fantasy, but just, you experienced it a lot earlier, obviously, and then to have your friend go through that experience of playing this game and seeing, how much Henny enjoyed it as well, super interesting to me. I think it's something, it's something new that I didn't like. I haven't experienced this before in a podcast, especially like, in a Final Fantasy centered, podcast. So I think that's super awesome. And I really love your podcast and your content. I think you guys are doing incredible work. And I hope that you continue, to create amazing content into the future. So
yeah, thank you so much.
That's very, very kind.
Definitely. I also really like your format, because usually people just watch others play a game for the first time, as in Let's Plays. It's good and well, but if your friend does that and then you get to talk about it with each other, it's completely new dimension, I wager. So really, really great premise right there.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And now it's switched, right? Because Chris, have you played Majora's Mask before?
I have not. This is
okay.
New experience for me. I've played Ocarina of Time, but
okay.
Yeah.
So no spoilers for that.
Oh no, absolutely not. Don't worry about that. But I like that, because it's kind of like you're going back and forth and playing. I guess like Chris is playing something that he hasn't played, and then Hanny, you're playing something that you haven't played. So it's like, but Hanny, have you played Majora's Mask?
Yes. So Majora's Mask was one of my favorite games of all time.
Okay.
Oh.
So it's
that's awesome.
I would say almost equivalent. I wouldn't, because Majora's Mask isn't my favorite game and it is definitively Chris's, I would say it's a little different. Right. But it is still, Majora's Mask is my number 2. So it's pretty high up there. And it is, I hope it's as rewarding for me as season 1 was for Chris. So I've been having a blast while we've been recording it.
Good.
And we, like I said, our next episode is launching very soon, or our first episode of season 2 is launching very soon. So hopefully others can come in and keep enjoying Chris and I's banter and personalities and stuff, just in a slightly different format than Final Fantasy.
Nice, that's awesome. I played Majora's Mask when I was a kid, and I think I actually didn't end up finishing it until a lot later in life.
Yeah, it's a difficult game. As Chris is learning.
It's also very disturbing for children, I would say.
It's really
very dark.
And
is it that one with the evil looking moon?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I found it really difficult to understand the time change and stuff like that. Yeah.
I cannot wait for you to listen to the next season then.
I pretty much crush it.
It was a lot from when I was a kid. Yeah, I just remember getting frustrated, and I'm like, I'm not going to finish this.
Sounding familiar, Chris?
No, I don't get frustrated at all.
No, not never, not once.
Yeah, I definitely relate.
Yeah. All right, guys, so moving along here, we are going to be talking about your experience and history with Final Fantasy as a franchise. So I'm super interested to know if you both, like, when you heard about Final Fantasy as a game, and maybe you can touch on, like, how many of the Final Fantasy games you've played. And obviously, we know, like, Chris, 7 is your favorite. We don't know if Haney's played like other ones, you know what I mean? And if you have a comparison to Final Fantasy VII, if that one, now that you've played it, is like your favorite one from all the ones that you've played.
So Final Fantasy VII was the first and currently last Final... Well, that's not true because I'm playing Crisis Core. Final Fantasy VII was the first Final Fantasy game I ever touched, if you don't count Kingdom Hearts, which for some reason a lot of people don't, even though it's very clearly a lead entry in the Final Fantasy series. But I played... as a kid, like concurrently with it coming out, I played Kingdom Hearts 1, Chain of Memories, and Kingdom Hearts, part of Kingdom Hearts 2. I never finished it. And I have seen Final Fantasy Unlimited, which was an anime that I don't think had any relation to any of the video games at all, aside from reusing some of the summons. Like Bahamut.
And Chocobos.
And Chocobos, okay. Oh, have you seen it?
I've seen it, yeah. It was a long time ago, yeah, but it's pretty cool, pretty awesome, I guess. But I think it's far removed from the Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
It has some elements in it, but story-wise and with characters, it's not really. It doesn't really feel Final Fantasy.
Right, definitely. It feels a lot like an adventure anime that would have come out around any other adventure anime that would have come out around the same time. Like Arc the Lad, Orphan, anything like that. Definitely had similar vibes to those to me more than Final Fantasy. And that is really my experience. Well, I've also I saw Advent Children once or twice about 15 years ago. Had no idea what was going on. I did see Final Fantasy Spirits Within, which apparently is not part of Final Fantasy VII.
Nope.
Didn't realize that for a long time either. And then I watched my brother play a good amount, I would say, of Final Fantasy VIII, but I don't remember a lot about it. And that's really the extent of where I had been previously. So I just never picked up any Final Fantasy titles when I was a kid. I played a lot of games. I played a lot of JRPGs even, but just never grabbed a Final Fantasy game. I was kind of always in the fringe edges of like, well, I like Kingdom Hearts, but I like Kingdom Hearts because I like the Disney plus anime aesthetic more than like I care about anyone from Final Fantasy in it. At the time when I played it. Now I'd be very excited to be like, oh my god, it's Cloud. Why does he look like that? I would be my immediate second question is why is he Vincent? Why is he Vincent plus Sephiroth? But that is a story for another day, I guess. But that's kind of where I'm at with Final Fantasy. Is just now I've finished the OG of FF7. I absolutely adored it. I'm getting really into Crisis Core. We kind of, to be completely honest, I wasn't as hooked into Crisis Core getting it off the ground. Like it took way longer for me to be like, oh, like I actually want to play this. And then just like, I would say like maybe like the second or third recording, Chris and I both just like snapped into it and got really excited about it. And now we're like really into it. But yeah, that's like where I'm at right now. And just really excited to kind of play more, learn more. Been thinking about picking up the MMO that's pretty popular right now. Is that Final Fantasy 14?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of stuff about that from my friends, like just on Instagram, who've been playing it. It looks fun. I was a big WoW fan for a long time. I like MMOs. I like
nice
things like that. So it seems like it could be something that would be into my interest. But aside from that, we're kind of keeping other Final Fantasy stuff a little bit at arm's length because it was so much fun for me to experience it for the first time for 7. We kind of want to see what we can do with 8, 10, 12, etc.
9.
Right.
9 is definitely on there.
9. Yeah. I always think for some reason that 9 was an online game that no one played, but that's 11, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about no
Yeah.
one playing it, but no one I knew played it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at with Final Fantasy. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you. Yeah, so I grew up with 7. I think I was probably about 11 when I played it for the first time, and it was really my first big story-based game at all, because previous to that I was playing like Sonic the Hedgehog and Mortal Kombat and all these other Genesis games.
How dare you imply that Mortal Kombat is not a story-heavy video game?
Yeah. Unless you count King's Quest and Quest for Glory. Those were my bread and butter back in the day. But yeah, I played Final Fantasy VII for the first time on the PC with the 3-disc set. My cousin was playing it, and I was watching him one day, and it just completely captivated me. So I borrowed it after he was done and played through it. And since then, I've played 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 15. I've had a hard time going back to the earlier games. But yeah, 7 onwards, I've pretty much hit all of them. I've just really been enjoying the whole series.
This sounds so familiar. Like practically all points you mentioned is just me.
Yeah.
Aside from King's Quest, it's this didn't touch me, but like platformers were my jam.
Oh yeah.
Donkey Kong Country, I loved them to bits. Mega Man, loved them to
I
bits.
love Mega Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fell into
so cool. Mega Man X.
Castlevania is what I gravitated toward.
That's also pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
This is also something I know a lot about, but have not played any of those. It's it's interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe I should one day.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe we
if
can
you
do
like-
a crossover.
Yeah. And if you like Mega Man,
sure.
then that's a very natural fit, I feel like.
Yeah.
Very good transition.
True.
But
That's true.
yeah, Final Fantasy has been pretty much informing my console purchases from, 7
Yeah.
onward. So,
Big Sony boy over here.
yeah.
Raising my hand too.
Big PlayStation, I would say, more than Sony.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah.
that's valid.
yeah. PlayStation. For sure.
I think I bought a PlayStation 4. Was it PlayStation 4 that I bought for, I think it was Versus 13 before it became 15. I think it was a PS4.
PS3.
Or PS3, yeah. I bought a
Yeah,
PS3 for that. And then it never came out.
Yeah.
And then it came out as something else
It was
later on.
very tragic.
That I also bought a PS4 for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely have done that. Bought consoles for Final Fantasy games. Absolutely.
No shame.
Yeah. On my end, it was a little bit different. I already had a PS1 before for other games like Rayman, for example. I loved it as well.
Oh man, Rayman.
Really cool platformer. Yeah. Rayman. And then I think I started playing Tomb Raider, the first one. And then I went to the store with a friend. I saw Tomb Raider 2 there. I thought, that's something I could pick up. But then I also saw this huge chunk of box with 3 discs in it. White background with just the letters and the meteor. Thought, looks cool. Turned around, cool pictures, and a guy with a big sword. And this could be interesting. And then I sat there for 45 minutes, annoying my friend to no end, and couldn't decide between Tomb Raider 2 and Final Fantasy VII. And after 45 minutes, I finally settled for Final Fantasy VII and never looked back.
You made the right decision.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. But I bought Tomb Raider 2 in like some months or so later anyway.
Perfect.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Where are you getting all the money?
I don't know. I just didn't spend that much. I saved them up for games.
Wow. Yeah. I'm similar to Vyzz, I guess, in the fact that I used to play a lot of platformers. Like my parents obviously controlled, what I played because they had the money, they had the big bucks, so they bought the consoles, and the big thing was Nintendo, and that's pretty much what I played. I played a lot of Nintendo platformers.
Same.
I had most of the Nintendo consoles, so my time was spent playing Mario games and Yoshi's Island or whatever.
Oh, I love that.
And, all different types of games. And I always like I remember seeing like the cover art for previous Final Fantasies in the store, like you could rent it, but I didn't really understand what it was. And I don't think I knew what an RPG was until much later when I got older. And then eventually I was at my friend's house and, he was showing me this game and I didn't actually know it was Final Fantasy VII until, he explained to me what it was. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So I know I've seen the cover art for those games, like the earlier games before. And we played it together and I fell in love. It was amazing. And then I didn't finish it until later, even after that, because back then we would go to the store with $5 and then we'd just rent a video game right at the convenience store. So then we'd never be able to actually finish a game. We'd have to return it because I'm from a small town. So we didn't have like Blockbuster. Yeah. So I played it later and ended up beating it. And it became like one of my favorite games of all time. So
it's awesome.
That's really cool.
Hear. By the way, short disclaimer here, because I not sure if all North Americans know that, but in Europe, we only received Final Fantasy VII as the first Final Fantasy. 1 through 6, nada. Nothing.
Oh, wow.
They only came out on, I think, those PS1 versions of the Anthology, Origins, and Final Fantasy VI.
Wow.
It was my first experience with that. I knew that they were different ones because I played some using an emulator at some point, but then bought all of them as well on the PS1, but only finished eventually Final Fantasy 1. The others, I don't know, just stopped in the middle somewhere. I don't know why. It's like with you, Chris. I just couldn't get that much into the older ones for some reason.
Yeah. I played them on my phone actually once the iPhone came out, and it actually had like a graphics card inside, or like the ability for you to be able to actually play like games on it. Obviously not like the first iteration, but I played the original Final Fantasy games on my phone because I never played them growing up. Like I said, like I saw them in the store, but I never played them, and I was too busy playing, Pokemon and other portable games as well, because I had a Sega Genesis and I had a Sega Game Gear, so it was a lot of Sonic, a lot of, Pokemon, pretty much just Pokemon. I was actually pretty old for a kid to be obsessed with Pokemon, but I was. I think it was the first anime that I actually watched as well, so. Like I was obsessed. I think I was like 13 and I was so into it. I loved Pokemon. Yeah.
I mean, I think that must have been around when I came into it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
You came into Pokemon that late, Chris?
Yeah. I didn't know what anyone was talking about.
Thinking back, I actually remember now playing any Pokemon stuff with a lot more of like my other friend group. Like the one that lived on the same road as me. We're very into it. Chris lived across town, which isn't very far, but far enough when you're 9, 10, 11 years old that you're not going to go play games together, without some parental assistance. So a lot of the games I played were with the people who lived nearby, and that's probably a lot of what shaped the games I played as a kid too. That between that and what my brother was playing, my older brother.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it was the same thing with me. More, couch co-op games like Mario Kart, things you could play together with friends.
A lot of that, yeah. Or games that are really interesting to like sit next to someone and watch, but not like
exactly
to the point where like Final Fantasy VII is pretty lengthy to like just sit next to someone and watch like when you're 10 years old. But like we would do like like I would watch my friends play like Need for Speed, or we would do co-op Need for Speed, or like play was that Twisted Metal? Was that? Yeah.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Like things like that. But not onto the JRPGs. That group.
Same. I never owned a PlayStation, so like my other friends did. So I would go to their houses. Obviously, we'd hang out and I'd play, PlayStation games that I never played before. So that was like it was an exciting thing because I had an N64. I had, a Nintendo consoles. So they would come over to my house, play the Nintendo games. So then we'd, I would go over there. We'd play PlayStation and Yeah.
N64 had so many great games that people just never got a chance really to play. Like
Quest 64.
well, yeah, like Quest 64, but also like
Mhm.
Jet Force Gemini was a phenomenal game, or
Mhm.
Turok Seeds of Evil was really great.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's a couple other ones that I really enjoyed playing. Was it the James Bond one? Was it Goldeneye?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
Goldeneye was
Oh
really
yeah.
sweet. Yeah, there
Oh
was
my gosh.
a lot of
Played
great.
that a lot at the friends too.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
a big play at friends' house games.
Yeah.
I think
I love that game.
Jet Force Gemini is probably the reason I love Halo so much, though, because it
Mm.
just is a very similar, or in my memory, it was a very similar vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember going to my friend's house and we would play Resident Evil games,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
because they were so
Oh,
creepy.
yeah.
And they were on PlayStation. So we would just play Resident Evil and stay up super late at night because we were too scared to go to sleep after playing through those games.
That's me at 30 years old, still, whenever I play anything scary.
Very good.
Oh, man. All right, so we did talk about your history with Final Fantasy VII. So we're going to dive into a little bit more in depth about Final Fantasy VII OG. So we're going to talk about, I guess, your guys' likes and dislikes about the game. Like, what did you love about it? If you had any gripes about the game, or like certain things like that. So I'm just going to start off first. So what I really love about Final Fantasy VII, and I've said it, multiple times on this podcast over the years, obviously, is, the characters in this game really make it for me. And I feel like there's depth to the characters there. They did a really good job, giving each character a really compelling backstory. You really feel for these characters as you're playing through this game. And a lot of the stuff actually went over my head when I played it when I was a lot younger. Like, I wasn't mature enough, I don't think, to understand more of the mature themes of the game. But that's what I love so much about it now, especially too, like going back to it, I am constantly finding out things that I might have just didn't understand, or I didn't I forgot about, let's say, up until now, just going back and playing it again. And I just love these characters so much. And I just talked about a little bit about the story building, right? So I just love what they did, with the story. I think it's super applicable, especially now, you know what I mean, where it's kind of like this eco-terrorism, evil corporation type of thing is more, I guess, relevant today, especially.
Mhm.
And I think that at the time it was kind of pushing the boundaries, for what was said or things that would happen in video games at the time, which I just also feel like they kind of not sugarcoated it a little bit, but they did make it more like a comedic thing. Some of the more serious parts of the story sometimes, which I can appreciate, obviously, if they knew that kids were playing through this game, especially to balance out the darkness of this game.
Mhm.
I love the world, the gameplay as well. I love the gameplay. I think the music, probably most of all, is my all-time favorite. I think the music, I don't think I've played another video game that has music in it that's this compelling and actually spoke to me. As a person, as a video gamer, just being in the moment and having these songs playing. And music is very powerful because it like, as a human, we're listening to these things, so it's like music attaches your experience to this very moment in time. So for me, whenever I hear these songs, from this game, I'm brought back instantly to exactly how I felt in this moment when I was experiencing this part of the game. And I think it's so impactful and it's very effective at doing that. Some songs in modern video games, especially, I find are very forgettable. Like, I don't remember. They might have an orchestra playing, but it's just not as catchy, or I don't know. It's just maybe the way it's mixed or something. I don't know. But for me, it's probably the music.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And this is the magic of Nobuo Uematsu-san's compositions, because he focuses so much on themes, on clear melodies, memorable melodies, that you know exactly, oh, this melody belongs to this theme or this character or this location.
Yes.
And it happens in basically every Final Fantasy where he's part of. Afterwards, not so much, unless you you take Final Fantasy 15, because
Yes.
Yoko Shimomura-san, who
Mhm.
also composed for the Kingdom Hearts series, is also phenomenal, but in a different way,
Yeah.
I'd say. Also pretty memorable, I'd say. So this is why so many people love the music of Final Fantasy games pre-12, like up to 10, and even 10 had different composers as well. So up to 9, I'd say. It's kind of 9 stopped, or was kind of the zenith of the golden age of Final Fantasy, many people would say, and it's also part due to the music, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
I have to step in here a little bit because I feel like it hasn't clicked for me until now, but I feel like the music of the Final Fantasy series is why I can't get into a lot of modern JRPGs anymore at this point.
Oh,
It's because there is
Okay.
just some special ingredient that's been missing for me. And I think a big part of that is probably the music and how high it set the bar so early on in my life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You've been spoiled.
I really have, yes.
I think that's absolutely true. There's a lot of themes, a lot of melodies, and that's that are really catchy. And that's what I love about Final Fantasy games, is that like they take the time and effort to actually create, a different song or a different theme or melody for each individual character, and then also the different environments, right? Like we get to a different town or a different city or whatever. It's like it has its own theme, so, and its own feel. So, when you go there, immediately, like, this is where you are. You're in Calm, or you're in Nibelheim, or Wutai, or whatever. It's just that simple thing, but it works so effectively. And I do agree with you, Chris, as well. It's the same thing with me trying to get into, all these other RPGs or other video games that I'm playing. There's something missing. I feel like it's not grabbing me. When a lot of people are playing through these games, and they really like them, and, I also enjoy them, but I find myself like, I find it really hard to complete games. Like I'm not coming back to the game to actually end up finishing it. I don't know if it could be, like I said, the music or other things, obviously. But it's just the music for me. It just really grabs me and makes me, it takes me back to that moment in time, especially playing Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy VII in particular, when I'm like, I know exactly what I was doing. I know how I felt like when I experienced these moments at that time in my life, which I guess is called nostalgia, right? But
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Can I'd love to piggyback a little bit into the music.
Sure.
Because I have a couple of things that I really enjoyed about the game, but the music is definitely like my number one. And I have a small story that a lot of people get very upset about in regards to the music from before I had ever played Final Fantasy VII. Back in 2010, I was a regular visitor of the Anime Boston anime convention, obviously in Boston. And that year, the video game orchestra was playing, and they were doing the Final Fantasy VII medley, or the Final Fantasy medley. And Nobuo Uematsu was the guest of honor at Anime Boston that year, and he joined them on stage to play some of the Final Fantasy medley during the concert, and it was probably one of the coolest things I'd ever seen in my life.
amazing.
But I had no connection to the game or to any of the songs. The only song I knew was One Winged Angel.
Of course.
Yeah.
It was really cool still, but I'm kicking myself now because I'm like, I didn't lock any of it into my memory as much as I would have probably now. So like I think there's a lot that I just wish I could remember from that, that concert, that moment. But that was a lot of fun still, regardless. But I was excited to get into Final Fantasy VII for the music anyway, before I had heard a lot of the music, because of the Black Materia album by Megaran. If any of you are familiar with that. I'm a big fan of nerdcore hip hop, and that was one of the the ones I really enjoyed. And I had seen him play live, and he played the song Avalanche off of that album, and I was like, I don't know what he's talking about, but this is a really fun song. And I got really into the album, but still never played Final Fantasy after for probably close to 10 years after hearing that album for the first time.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Shame on you.
I know. Those are my musical tidbits to add to the musical discussion.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. But you understand, obviously, what we're talking about because you've played other games when you were younger. So I'm sure if you were to hear those, themes
Mega
or
Man
songs
3
from other games.
has one of the...
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mega Man, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's just completely different because you haven't played it, right, until now. So you don't have that attachment, but you have the appreciation because you know that, yes, the music is, incredible, and it's a way for people to connect obviously with video games, which is why music is so important in video games, right? It can't just be an afterthought, which I think sometimes in some video games it absolutely is. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, we need we need like a cymbal crash here, or we need this, whatever, and it's not like actually thought through, where the themes aren't composed, or they don't actually put enough time or effort into developing specific emotional kind of themes or something. It's just like, oh, just throw something in,
Yeah, I totally get that. And now I listen to the OST all the time now. It's great background music for work, because it has the hyper focus concentration kind of vibe to it. So, there's no lyrics, so it's not super distracting, unless it's One Winged Angel. Which that song's just going to be distracting anyway, because I'm going to start feeling like I'm Safer Sephiroth while I'm trying to write some code or something. But but yeah, I absolutely adore the music. It was probably one of the first things that hooked me, and it was one of the things that I knew Chris was really excited about me experiencing.
Yeah. Pretty incredible what they can achieve with that sound card, right, that they used to actually make the music back then. It's pretty insane, honestly.
Absolutely.
So what about the characters in the game? What did you like about the characters, Haney?
So, I mean, everything really, right? They completely subverted my expectations, right? Like I had some very clear expectations in my head of what to expect from, Cloud, from Aerith, from Sephiroth going into the game. And I was just so wrong. Just so wrong going into the game. Like, I know, if you've listened to our podcast at all, you've heard me kind of refactor my opinions on certain characters as the game wore on. But, by the time I got to the end, I realized that I had no good idea about what any of these characters, real morality or ethics or anything like that was. I never knew that what Avalanche was. I never had kind of thought about what Barrett and Tifa were trying to accomplish with Biggs and Jesse and Wedge. And I don't think I gave anyone enough credit in the game, because I had only seen the characters boiled down to one or two personality traits to be NPCs in other games, right? I had seen Cloud just as an NPC in Kingdom Hearts, and then I had seen him in Advent Children. But I had no understanding of what was happening in Advent Children. I didn't know anything about what he had been through at that point when I saw that movie. So I was just like, okay, he's kind of annoying. That's cool.
We don't even know what happened in Advent Children. We're still trying to figure out.
But and then Sephiroth is a very one-dimensional character in
most other media.
Yeah, in at least in
yes.
In Kingdom
Smash
Hearts,
Brothers.
And Smash. I haven't seen.
Yeah,
I haven't seen him in Smash Brothers yet. But yeah.
Spoiler. Sorry.
That one I do know. I was very pleased by the teaser trailer.
I didn't know if you knew he was in that game.
Yeah, I'm a big Smash Bros fan, so I did see that. But all the characters as I had interacted with them were very flat, very very boring characters, right? And that's fine when they're not the main characters, but I was just kind of worried that that's who the characters were. And then I was like, oh no, they're very full characters, with completely fleshed out lives and backstories and everything. It's just they weren't the focus for this item, for this other media. So obviously they've been boiled down. So who at the end of the day, who cares about Cloud in Kingdom Hearts, right? You know, that's not who the story is about. He's there for a little nod for the people who like Final Fantasy, you know, like oh look, we put a character that's really well loved in here just so you can kind of wave and move on, you know. But the characters all just completely, I was shocked at the level, like the depth of each character, and not just the playable characters either, like the enemies, like the one of my favorite not parts like as in like a specific moment in the game, but kind of overarching like part is anything to do with the Shinra board members, because they're so interesting and fleshed out, and they're all so slimy in their own individual ways, like trying to get their own means, and there's so much infighting, and it's so, as someone who's worked at large corporations, it's like I see alarm bells going off in my head, and I'm like, I literally can like tie names of people I've seen in real life to these people, because they're not fantastical. They're just shady business people.
They're just people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
And that was probably one of the most upsetting things about learning more about Shinra too, was just how much like a real company it is. And like, yeah, they do awful stuff. They're really horrible, but like, so do a lot of other companies. And I think I wasn't really like expecting to kind of have my real life like, you know, ethics and real life morality and thoughts around, you know, things like capitalism and you know systems of government and, you know, politics and all that stuff. I wasn't thinking I was going to have to entertain like the real world at all in my head, but you know, as soon as I found out that Avalanche is an eco-terrorist group that's basically setting out to do, you know, to stop corporations from destroying the world by stripping it of its natural resources, I was like, oh boy, that's very realistic. Like that's not even remotely fantasy. Like that's just real life. So like I think I was just so shocked going into like I hope a lot of that was captured kind of in our podcast, but how shocking everything was to me. I was basically like a little kid walking into like a 2-story mall for the first time and just looking around open mouthed at all the stuff and like, how do I unpack all of this? How do I go into everything? How do I talk to everyone? Like I need to like just be fulfilled by all of the world. And there was just so much world building, so many good characters, so many good characters outside of just your party. There was, you know, like the villains are good, the NPCs are good, there's little tidbits here, like there's these, you know, rando characters that have whole like little overarching subplots that connect them into everything, but you don't, you know, you can either view it and kind of just follow it along, like you know, Johnny's whole storyline, like you can completely miss anything with Johnny if you want to.
Yes.
But if you don't, you're rewarded with a very rich like character. You know, you don't get like maybe a physical reward in game, but you're rewarded with like closure. Like you're like, oh, like Johnny found love. He's gonna, sorry, spoilers for, you know, other people, but like, oh, like Johnny found love and he's like gonna get married and like this is like cool, but like. And you know, like this like from the beginning of the game where he was like that, you know, punk that you run into who's like, oh, have you been to Wall Market yet? You know, it's like, no. Good God, why are you talking to me?
Right? Who is this guy?
Yeah. So like there's just like all of that was just so good. And like I think that's really what hooked me, was just how much they just packed into this world.
Yeah. And I would say it's also equally interesting going in as a full-grown adult at this point, because when you go through the game younger, there's a lot you miss with the characters, like what makes them them.
There was even some points where you were like, you know, like for things that weren't like main story or main dialogue, where you, Chris, were like surprised at like something. You're like, oh, I don't remember that, or like, oh, that's kind of that's kind of bananas, like. And or like even what you said, like I don't think I understood that subtext when I was young.
Yeah. So it was really interesting to watch you play through it, Hanny, and actually react to everything that that didn't click for me when I played it the first time. And I've also never played through it with like a strategy guide or anything, so there's plenty of stuff that I never saw in past playthroughs. So yeah, really cool.
Yeah, and there's just so much that's just so fun, and like I can't imagine playing this game as like, you know, so many people have told me, you know, there were anywhere from, you know, 7 to 13 when they played it for the first time. Like, gosh, I just can't imagine playing this game and really understanding, you know, knowing myself as a 13-year-old, like, you know, I don't think I would have got this, you know? Like,
Yeah.
as Chris is playing Majora's Mask, even now, you know, I haven't really revisited Majora's Mask myself. Aside from, you know, like looking things up online, I haven't like done a full like original N64 playthrough in a long time. And, you know, as Chris is going through it now, there's even moments where I'm just like, oh, that's not something I remember from childhood. So like it makes me almost want to just like start making a list of all the games I played as a kid to go back and just like start playing through them and understanding what what I missed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's kind of the Disney formula because Disney movies are usually constructed in a way that children and parents get something out of it. Children get the cool stories and the characters and the colors and the animation and the spectacle, and the parents understand subtext.
There's that, you know, there's always those like jokes that are like slightly more adult humor, slightly like inappropriate, and you're like, oh, if I was anything under like, you know, 15, I probably would not have got that. You know, in a Disney movie, and that's absolutely true. I had that with Moana recently, where I was talking to my nephew who's turning 7, and you know, he was going around with Maui's Hook and having a good time at his house a couple weeks ago, and I was playing with him, and I was telling him all about how much I loved the music in it, and he's just like, yeah, that's cool, but like Maui, Hook, and I'm like, yeah, okay, well, we'll have this conversation in 10 years. I was like, I'll tell you all about how much I love Lin-Manuel Miranda as a composer in 10 years, and we'll revisit then.
The only thing that I found about Disney movies, though, going back, honestly, they're pretty bad, like cringy and also very like inappropriate by today's standards, where it's like, oh god, this did not age well, you know, like what do you think? Like I went back and tried to watch some of them on Disney Plus, and I'm like, oh god, I can't even watch them because I'm like, oh, there were some things said
we tried that
probably shouldn't have been said in these movies, and they're not socially acceptable right now, so I'm gonna move on. I'm not gonna continue to watch these. But when you're a kid in the 90s, or you know, during that time when they came out, it's like you didn't even realize because the world was different, right?
We went through that recently on Disney Plus as well with Drake and Josh. We were watching it, and I think it was Drake and Josh, or no, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. And I was like watching it with my wife, and we kind of just looked at each other. I was like, this is not good, right? Like what they're saying is not okay, right? And she's like, no, definitely not. And I was like, okay. I was like, because it's on Disney, but I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
And like I had the same thing with Friends too. I was like, oh boy, this is not age well. Like they come across very awful people.
But the thing about Final Fantasy, especially 7, they approached the story with such grace. I feel like they, you know, could have been inappropriate or, you know, just socially, I guess, I don't even know what the word is, you know, blind or whatever,
right, yeah.
To certain things, but they didn't. And I felt like they, you know, they did a good job of balancing the kind of real, you know, heavy things with, you know, humor and quirkiness and just funny things, you know, but it could have been done even better, you know what I mean? Because I feel like they did kind of gloss over certain things and also didn't explain things. Like, for example, you know, it wasn't until later that I realized that, you know, Cloud is kind of in a bathhouse with other men, and there's kind of like a little groping thing, and I'm like, wait, did he get raped? Like, did he, like, was he by a man? Like, and then as a kid, I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that was what was happening.
Right.
And after I'm like, oh God, did that just happen? You know what I mean? But they balance it out with, you know, the, you know, quirky, weird kind of characters and the bright colors, and they're all, you know, doing this dance or whatever. It's just kind of like, okay.
I think Wall Market is probably the biggest part where I was just like, I knew there was some stuff coming up. Like I had heard about Cloud cross-dressing previously and stuff, and I was I was a little like, I don't know how they were going to handle that in the 90s, like how like sensitive or insensitive that could be, you know, compared to the modern age and stuff. And I was like, I was pretty curious about it, and I was like, that was definitely the least upsetting thing in that part. So I guess there's that. But
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's like you were saying, you know, there's enough humor and enough lightheartedness without being without making fun of the subject matter. Like they're not. I feel like they're not poking fun at the dark subject matter to express humor. The humor is adjacent to it to be like, oh, like I'm trying to still show you that this is a bad place where not great things happen.
Exactly.
But there can still be humor alongside of it to make you feel better. But the humor doesn't necessarily have to come from the exact moment that's making you uncomfortable, right? Like Don Corneo doesn't necessarily make me laugh. Like, I don't think he's ever made me laugh. I think the only thing he's ever made me want to do is push him off a cliff. Which I did.
Yeah, was about to say.
Yeah. And you know, but there's other things that are really funny around that, where, like, you know, Aerith apologizes to Koch before pushing him down a flight of stairs, you know, into the dungeon. And that part made me laugh so hard, because she, like, just the apology itself, because she just turns around and is like, I'm so sorry. And then just, like, you know, like, you push someone down stone steps. Like, you probably killed them. We find out, you know, that wasn't the case. But, like, for all we know in that moment, like, she probably just killed this guy and apologized for it. And that's hilarious in the moment to me.
I think it does a great job of kind of pointing out the absurdity of certain situations. And how, like, complete off the wall bonkers things are. And that's where, I mean, there's so much humor in this game. But yeah, especially Wall Market is just insane.
It's bananas. And there's, like, I don't even know that I really scratched everything that was there, right? But there was so much that's just like, that's, like, kind of, like, really depressing, right? Because it's still, like, part of the slums. The dressmaker is, like, a depressed alcoholic. Like, that's really dark. But then, you know, like, oh, Cloud is the beauty that he's missing, that's, like, gonna give him the inspiration to get his life together. That's so amazing. Like, are you kidding me? That's hilarious. Like, just so ridiculous, but it's so good. And I mean, what can I say? Cloud is beautiful at the end of it. So
Exactly.
like I don't know what else there is to say. Like, Cloud looks amazing.
And that's the moral of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as you're beautiful, it's gonna be okay. Right? Did I miss? I think I missed the point. Dang.
Oh boy.
You're like, oh god, Cloud is beautiful. Am I attracted to Cloud?
Yes.
Wait, there's so many
Explicitly,
questions
yes.
that now I'm asking myself. You're like, I'm learning things about myself that I didn't know. Like, what is happening?
To be fair to me, I've known for decades that I was attracted to Cloud. I just didn't know why I was attracted to Cloud until I got to know him. It was a purely physical relationship before.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
All right, Vyzz. So why don't you tell us about your likes about Final Fantasy VII OG?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, I probably have to say that everything you said before, Kai, I have to second. Like, the world, story building, characters especially, music, as I said before. And with gameplay, the materia system is just something that captivates me completely. I still think it's the best system among all the other Final Fantasies in terms of growth and versatility, like in creating your own characters, kind of, because otherwise they're basically the same and blank slates, aside from limit breaks, which were also pretty great. Mechanically pretty simple, but still awesome to use. Whenever there's a limit break, the bar fills up, then you're like, oh yeah. Brings you out of dire situations.
Yeah.
And some look really, really good.
Hell yeah.
Like Omnislash, anyone?
Omnislash is awesome. That was phenomenal.
And some others too, of course. Like Aerith's effects are also always really beautiful. Her miscellaneous limit breaks. One heals you, one applies status effects to enemies, I think. One heals status effects, and another one protects you from damage altogether. And it's those limit breaks are so unique to each character. Like Vincent's Berserker mode, anybody? It's like a completely different way to play.
Vincent's
and sometimes
are bonkers too. Like, I didn't understand how some of the limit breaks or like final weapons like worked until after I beat the game and like got a guidebook. So like, I didn't know that like the more enemies you kill with Peacemaker, is it Peacemaker? With Vincent's final weapon, like the stronger it gets. And then there was something that's like,
yeah.
There's something that was related to someone's limit break. I can't remember. It might have been Vincent's too, where it's like depending on if you had done like XYZ things in the game, like it gave it like better powers or something. There was like a lot of those mechanics that I would have never understood without like a game guide.
Or Barrett's missing score depends on how much AP equipped material you have. Like
Exactly,
if you have
yeah.
Knights of the Round 8 times on it, then it breaks the game basically. It's overflows.
Perfect.
Plus hero drinks and stuff, yeah. It's fun. Some are pretty easy, like Clouds. The more HP you have, the more damage output it has.
Yeah.
Tifa's is with what was it? How much her limit break bar was filled up or something, which I didn't like. And some others. It's crazy. Definitely crazy, yeah. But it was fun. That's what's fun. It's not everything is immediately apparent. Like it doesn't
Exactly.
spoon feed you. It doesn't hold your hand through the game. You have to find stuff yourself.
Definitely
Some
not,
things are a
yeah.
little bit too obscure. Like
Yes.
certain enemy skills where you have to manipulate certain enemies to
Yeah.
even have the chance to get it. Like the beach plugs and not the White Wing, the big guard. White Wind is a Semselet on the other continent, but also only acquirable by manipulating. So that's fun. When you don't know anything.
Exactly. And also you can miss some spells.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't know that this is what you had to do or whatever, like you would just miss some of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Especially
absolutely.
one of them. It's a one-off, and if you don't learn it then, there's
It's
no
always,
way.
it's gone. Yeah.
Pandora's box, and it's also at the very end of the game.
Yeah, we missed that.
They did a
Haney.
good job of like
Yeah.
giving you multiple, I guess, enemies to get it from multiple times. Like if you didn't get it at this time, but it didn't explain it to you. So like if you didn't have it equipped at the time when you were battling that enemy the second or first time, then you didn't get it. I mean, that was it. You know what I mean? Like you might not have even have
Or like
had it equipped.
how to get Yuffie even is so
yeah.
convoluted. Like you have to say the exact right thing at the exact right, like in the exact right order. And they're the not obvious choice. They're the thing where you're like, well, I know it's not that one. I'm not going to tell her to go away or whatever, because like obviously I want her to join. I remember telling something almost exactly like that to Chris. Like I'm like, well, I'm not going to say this one because like obviously I want her, and then I choose that one, and then suddenly I'm down, a couple hundred gil and she's gone, and I was like, what?
Yep. And even if you go safe, then she's gone and your gil as well.
Yeah.
Also like
or the invisible ink for Vincent too. Like how would you even know that?
Oh yeah, seriously. Yeah, the whole Nibelheim mansion, Shinra mansion part is also ridiculous.
Absolutely bonkers.
But it's fun.
It's so fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is, yeah. And what I also really like is the extreme variety in locations, story beats, character arcs, and all the mini games it has. It's so crazy. It's so diverse. All these elements. It's not like there's one formula repeated over and over and over again. It's just everywhere you go, new location, new area, new character. You experience new stuff, new things. And new mechanics, new mini mechanics, like warming yourself up on the way up to Gaia's cliff and stuff. It doesn't stop to amaze me every time I play it.
Gaia's cliff still hurts me too because I missed the Alexander summon.
Oh no!
Oh,
yeah, that's the Great Glacier before. Yeah.
Yep.
It's also not easy because you need to know what you need to touch the hot spring and then talk to the lady in somewhere. And if you wander around for too long, you just break down and
just
wake
freeze,
up in Holtz's cabin again. Yeah,
that happened to us when I was like, oh, I'm gonna go back for it, and then just like kept getting lost. I couldn't figure out the pole system where you have to like put the poles down as you're walking to like track your stuff during the snow.
Because it turns around the camera.
Yeah, and I was just like, I was just throwing them down like higgledy-piggledy and just having a great time. And Chris is like, so you're not exactly tracking anything right now. I'm like, I'm having a good time. It's fine. But yeah, like it's nothing is obvious, and it's so diverse, like you were saying.
It is, yeah. Yeah, that's about it from my side. Anything else you guys want to share that you really loved or liked about the game?
I think one thing that I loved that we didn't touch on a lot was summons. This is like my first kind of game that has had an effect like a summons, I would say. Like there's there's always like special moves in games and stuff, but like I really fell in love with the summons, and I got very excited. Like getting a new one and like waiting to see what the animation was and getting like really hyped over it. And like I think Chris and I went so far as to like rank our summons because like of like in order of how much we love them, because like it was just so cool and just so unique. And that was probably one of the, aside from, you know, we've talked about characters and story building, the world, all that stuff is, and music, which is all obviously fantastic. But the only other thing that really hooked me, aside from, you know, all the other stuff we've already talked about, was the summon system is just so neat, and they were so creative with the summons, and just I loved it. My favorite is Hades, for just
Oh yeah.
just for the sake of saying it. But I loved, but they're so good. Like they're just so great. It's so fun.
Hades is also one you should use against Ruby weapon.
Oh
because
boy,
it stops him.
Ruby weapon was a nightmare. I don't think I made it past the first attack ever. I tried it like 3 or 4 times with Chris one day.
It needs a very, very special strategy there.
Yeah.
There are a few, but it's very special, yeah.
I don't think I ever beat Ruby or Emerald weapon. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. Emerald's a nightmare as well. So.
I beat
if you don't know what to do.
I beat Ultima and Diamond.
Yeah, Diamond you need to for story reasons.
Diamond you have to for the story. And
is Ultima the one that's flying around?
We were trying to had to do it for a side quest. I can't remember what one now though.
Getting into the forest.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not really something you have to do. Like first you need to have the fortitude to keep on his tail. Like just chase him down all the way and keep bumping into him until he decides to fly somewhere and stay there, and then you can battle him like 4 or 5 times. Then when you beat him, you have gained access to the ancient forest, which is also a side location with a kind of a side quest, not really, but more like a treasure trove of really cool items you get, and a summon and a new weapon. But you can also breed chocobos, and I think it was the green one that can also just race up the mountain and get in there if you don't want to beat the ultimate weapon.
Yeah.
I would say the now I just want to go back and play it.
Right? This is what happens.
Yes.
I think the other thing that I really loved, which is going to be very, very, very specific, but the Crash Scale Nika really just resonated with me for some reason. Like I loved the character designs of the enemies in there. It was just a really fun place to hang out and grind. And I don't know why. I just really loved the Crash Scale Nika, and I could have done a ton more in there.
It's a special place.
Also, I got like the best stuff in there.
Yeah. Hades,
for instance. High Wind, yeah.
Conformer.
Oh my god, Conformer.
Double cut.
Conformer with double cut was how I got through the last like quarter of the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those are my big ones that we hadn't already mentioned. That I really loved. But obviously, plus everything else we mentioned.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've covered pretty much everything. I would just highlight the humor again. Like, there's just these little touches throughout the game, like the way that Sid runs when you're controlling him is like, why is he running like that? But
or anything with Palmer.
Or anything with
I was just about to say, Palmer gets hit by a truck.
Where did that
What is
come
happening?
from?
What is happening? Like, what?
Yeah, I think that was
Oh my god.
something you said specifically, Hanny. You were like, I did not expect this game to have this much humor in it. Like, I didn't expect it to be funny.
It's really funny, and there's funny moments right from the beginning, you know, like there's just like little bits of physical comedy, which you don't often see in JRPGs, you know, physical comedy, like that's kind of bonkers to ask from a sprite, you know, but like they managed to pull it off. And there's, you know, all these little bits with Yuffie, right, where like Yuffie's Yuffie has you know, sickness or what's it called, that motion sickness, right? And like that's always hilarious that you can always find her whenever you're on like the High Wind, or you know, in the sub, she's always just like kind of like in the corner, like trying to like stop from throwing up, which is really funny to me. And like there's just, and it gives, you know, Cloud that relatable moment where he's like, oh, you know, when I was first like in quote unquote in Soldier, like I used to get motion sickness too, and it's like, oh, cool. Now he's also like got a moment to like relate to this person through that
Little
through
bonding moments, yeah.
humor. Yeah, there's a lot of really great ones.
Yeah, but most definitely, it does make you want to go back and replay the game again. You know what I mean? Because there's so much, and there's so many things that you could have missed, like you said, or just to go back and experience it again. Now, having talked about it, with us or other people or your friends, other people who played the game as well. And that's what I love so much about it. It's just that it just kind of attracts you to kind of go back to it again, and live in the world again and experience it again. And that's what I love so much about this game, just to, give me an excuse to go back to this world and spend more time with these characters, which is why, we've, with Remake, we have the ability to go back and experience the world again. And that's, one of the biggest things for me. Not talking about any spoilers or anything like that, but
sure would be nice if I could also get excited about it.
Yeah. But I'm sure you are excited about it because you know that it exists. And you just spent so many hours playing the original game, and you're like, wow, I'm gonna get to experience this world again in a different way. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure it's like drawing you back in.
Yeah,
you know
and
what I mean?
Now I understand that. Before we had planned on the podcast, I was talking, with Chris at some point, and I was like, we were talking about Final Fantasy VII, and I was like, I'll probably just wait for the remake to come out, and I'll just play that first. And Chris was like, you absolutely will not do that. and I'm glad, that was something that came even before we had talked about the podcast. Was that he was like, no, like you're not gonna get the same effect that you would have if you play the OG first. And now
it's true.
I think that's very true, because I'm very excited to now I get to experience something that I love, but also for the first time in a way again. And like I'm like, I'm spoiled. I get to do this twice as a grown up.
Yep, absolutely.
For sure.
All right, guys, so we are going to move on now. We're going to be talking about things that you didn't like about, or maybe things that you had an issue with Final Fantasy VII. So, Vyzz, did you want to start us off?
Of course. Well, just a disclaimer beforehand. Those are issues and dislikes I had when I first played it, like when I was younger and had basically no experience with JRPGs and stuff. So bear that in mind. Nowadays, most of those wouldn't be any issue. But what I still have a little bit of an issue with is the inconsistent visuals. Like there's a character design for just the field model when you run around. Then in battle, it's much more detailed. And then when you're on the Chocobo, it's much less detailed. When you're on the world map, I think it's just a tiny bit different as well. And the area on the field, like when you're just running around, is very detailed. There's a pre-rendered background. But on the world map and in battle, it's 3D. Very early 3D, of course, because it's that old. So there's quite a lot of inconsistency between different areas, different stages of the game, let's say. But after a while, you don't really care anymore because the rest is so great. But it's still something that
that's fair.
Kind of notice at some point, and it's because it's visual, it jumps you in the eye.
I think so too.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that it was a stylistic choice on their part, because I initially thought that it might have been limitation to the hardware, where they couldn't use the character models in the world map, or
it is. I think it's pretty much a hardware limitation, and also their inexperience with 3D, because they still kind of wanted to, or were in like in the workflow of creating sprite-based games. And then their first foray into 3D was kind of a blend between those sprite-based games and 3D, because when you look at Final Fantasy VIII and IX, it's completely different, and it's
yes, exactly.
It's much more consistent. It feels much more consistent. But with 7, it's like this weird middle child between old and new, and it shows.
Yeah, because I think that they were conflicted though too, because they kind of wanted to present something like the little chibi characters, like you said, with the the sprites, but then also not having the experience to create something, I guess, in 3D. Not like because this was the first time when we had like polygonal figures or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was on another podcast with Crane, and he's on the Sunomods team, and he was saying that apparently it was just a stylistic choice that they chose to do this because like not necessarily hardware limitation. And I was like, oh, okay, super interesting. But yeah.
But then why change the models between battle and field? That's still quite strange.
I agree.
Maybe it was just but I do remember hearing some things about also their issues with the hardware and the engine and their experience with 3D. That was also an issue. Then it was probably born from that, a stylistic choice to go with that because it worked for them. Because I don't know.
Maybe they did the battle arenas last, like they did the, you know what I mean? Then they did the model, and they're like, oh God, we can't go back and then take this model and put it in because they had already done the.
As someone who writes code for a living, that is so painful to think about because the like primary directive in code is called dry, don't repeat yourself, and having separate models and sprites is so repetitious for different moments where I'm just like, I would not have enjoyed working on that particular project at that time, I don't think.
Yeah.
But let's be real, if I got to develop a video game, I'd be very excited.
Yeah, same.
So I have a quick question kind of related to this, because if either of you, Kai or Vyzz, have played Xenogears, they almost go the opposite direction, where the background is 3D and the character models are sprites. Do you prefer that to the Final Fantasy VII style?
Hard to say. I haven't played Xenogears, but I have played Breath of Fire 3 and 4, which is exactly the same. It's 3D backgrounds, which you can turn around by 30-degree steps, and at the 90-degree steps. And the character models were also sprites. Everything are also in battle. So I think I like both.
Okay.
7 was just like the first one, and it worked pretty well in 8 and 9, I'd say. But Breath of Fire was also a beautiful game. I loved it. I played multiple times. 3, 4 only once. But I loved them as well. So it's, I think, two different styles. Both achieve visually pleasing experience. So, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
I really like Xenogears. It was one of the ones I played as a child that I really enjoyed. But I also like it for a very selfish reason, in that it is the game that bridges the gap between Chris and I's Square experience. Because my favorite Square game of all time, and my favorite game of all time, is Chrono Cross. And obviously Chris's is Final Fantasy VII, and Xenogears was originally developed as a proof of concept for Final Fantasy VII. And then they're like, no, but we'll like let you do your own thing. And then they're like, actually, let's make this a sequel to Chrono Trigger. And then they're like, no, we're not going to do that actually either. And so after it became its own series, and after it spawned the Xeno series, it's just really funny to look back and be like, oh, like that game that I really enjoyed could have been either my best friend's favorite game of all time or my favorite game of all time if the circumstances had been different, right? And it's just an interesting piece that kind of goes in between our series preferences from back in the day.
That's nice.
Interesting.
So let's move along here. What I also didn't like, but this was just a design choice for many JRPGs back then, is saving. Because I had at that point still limited amount of time per day for gaming, because my parents didn't want me to just lock myself away for 10 hours a day or something. I had to save first, of course, before stop playing. And sometimes it was not easy, especially when I went to play when they were away for a while. And then I had to like save and switch the system off before they noticed I was playing. So like I heard them comment, and oh, save, quick. Yeah.
The number of times I've told my mom that I have to get to a save point before I can stop playing.
Yeah, that as well.
Yeah.
That as well.
I still do that.
Yeah.
Mom, no.
You might remember this part where I think it was at the end, not the end, but at the northern crater the first time, where a lot of revelations happened, and you go a really long time through story beats without being able to save. And I was like at my hour mark, I think it was an hour by then, and I thought, sorry, I cannot save, I need to finish this, and I didn't know how long it took, and in the end I played for 1.5 hours until I could save finally. She wasn't pleased, but she let me do it because she probably knew that if I had to switch it off and play the whole thing again, I would be mad at her and wouldn't be beneficial for anybody, so yeah, she let me do it. But this is just a thing that sometimes turned it to my favor, like I could play more or longer, but mostly it was just annoying.
Yeah.
But I afterwards with the other games, I just got used to it and learned how to like kind of work with this system and save early, save if I'm able, and save early enough when I know my gaming time is almost over. So it worked in the end, I guess. But nowadays, being able to save anywhere in many games, still, this is a blessing, I think.
Yeah, kids these days, you know, they don't know what we went through. They don't understand.
They'll never understand.
They don't understand. Yeah, they'll never understand. I used to leave my console on and I would just like turn the TV off. And then he'd be like, I'm in the middle of playing, like there's no save point, like just, you know, leave it turned on or whatever. But then
No
I would come home and yeah, exactly. But my brother would have already came home, turned it off and put a different game in.
Oh.
So that I lost everything. And have to restart or whatever. Yeah, crazy, eh? I guess the only thing that, you know, now, like, I guess for kids, it would probably be like, you know, if you had an app or something and then somebody deleted your app. But even then, there's Cloud Save where it saves the data or whatever from your phone to cloud. So then it will download your save file. Like, if it's like some game that you play, you know what I mean? I'm trying to think. Or if you're in school and like something, I guess, like even on Google Docs, though, it still saves everything you type as you type it. So it's like, what? Oh my God, people don't understand. They just don't understand.
I was talking to someone the other day who was asking me why a coding program I used at work didn't autosave, and I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, all the ones I've used have autosave. And I was like, is that a thing now? I was like, and I was like, oh my God, I feel like such an old person because I'm just like over here like hitting like, you know, Command S like an old guy. And
same here.
And everyone else is just like, oh no, you can just turn on autosave. And I'm like, what?
Are you guys like the people who still manually save like when you're playing a game, even though like PS4 or PS5 has autosave? Like I still manually save. It'll show me like, oh, you know, we just autosaved like 5 minutes ago.
I don't believe it.
I don't care. I literally save
No.
so much.
Don't trust that.
I want my hard saves.
Yeah.
I had like gigabytes and gigabytes of just save files. Of so many.
With like 8 minutes of progress in between each one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm just too scared, dude. I don't use autosave ever. Like whenever I load a game, it's like, do you want to continue or do you want to load a save? I'm like, I ain't continuing. I'm pressing load.
Let's go.
And then I'm loading my most recent save. Like what? Anyway.
There's no other way.
I'm not that crazy.
No, definitely not. I think, or we all are.
Both, probably.
Yeah.
Oh man, sorry to all the youngins that listen to our podcast. I'm really dating us now, but
you tell us, listeners.
I'm happy that you don't have to do this. Like you never had to experience it. Okay, that's great. I'm so happy that you don't because
Good
it
for
was
you.
terrible. So like I have underlying issues that I haven't dealt with yet, emotionally and mentally, from this specific issue.
We walked,
so I'm so glad,
run,
you know,
listeners.
that you don't have to experience that.
Yeah. And I also have pretty much like a scar in my brain from Ketchi killing my save like 2 hours grinding because I hit Kate bar in his limit break. Just seriously, no. Just don't use him when you're grinding, or don't use his limit break, his second level limit break when you're grinding. Just don't, please, and save the trouble and the headaches.
Oh man.
Yeah. So yeah, then more things that might have been an issue back then. We already talked about it, that it doesn't spoon feed you, doesn't tell you anything. And back then, with my first JRPG experience, no idea what to do. It had unclear objectives and not really like where you actually had to go. You knew where to generally go to, but not really where to, because at some point I got not really lost, but I didn't know where to go in the Corel prison. But then you had to go to a certain area before the Great Desert, but then turn right instead of going straight ahead and then into the desert, and then you're lost. And it took me so long to figure out where to reach Dine at. And yeah, it's... And you might also remember this stupid plank in the collapsed expressway when you're going to Wall Market. This stupid plank that is a 3D object in a pre-rendered background, and you don't really have a shadow. You don't know, like, spatially where it is. It's just there. And yeah,
I'm pretty sure every time we returned there, Haney, that plank avoided your gaze completely.
in North Coral, where you're trying to like how to get to
no in
Midgard, when you go to Wall Market.
Yes.
Broken expressway. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my god, awful.
Yeah, not ideal.
Yes. Sorry, Coral is also a huge problem for me.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. Not when I think when I last replayed Final Fantasy VII, I blazed through the Midgar section like nothing, and this collapsed expressway, I knew where to go. I also could see where the pathways were. Like 2 battles and I'm through. Not even that, maybe. Depends on your luck. But before that, it took me like an hour or something to get through there.
Oh, yeah.
or the train graveyard.
Yeah.
Oh boy, yeah. Yes,
good.
yes.
Definitely not.
I couldn't even figure out how to get out of Midgar. Like, I don't know about anybody else, but I spent a long time like going back and forth, like just trying to figure out, I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, after I had, done everything, it just doesn't tell you.
Yeah,
like,
it's sometimes
I don't know what
hard
to do.
yeah.
Like, where am I supposed to go? I was just like running back and forth for like an hour or so.
Yeah.
And then finally I get outside of Midgar and I'm like, oh, okay, so now I can leave. Okay, great.
That could have something to do with the save points also, because if you haven't played in like a couple of days and you come back to it, you're like, what was my objective?
Yeah, you're like, what was I doing?
And you can't just open the menu and check on your objective. That
exactly
didn't exist there.
Signposting could have been better for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
That would have been a way to do it for sure.
Yeah, like level design, it's beautiful, but it doesn't really guide you through it as well as it should. At some point. That's probably why they introduced the select button function, where I can display the exits, the ladders, and your location.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. If you find the tutorial room, that is. If you don't, you won't know about this feature, and then you're lost.
Not that room. that room is burned into me.
It's so fun. I love it.
Welcome to the beginner's hall.
Now the dog's getting involved.
The beginner's hall.
Excellent.
Oh boy.
Speaking of humor, just finding those folk again, like back in Shinra, or not in Shinra, in the Junon military base, just finding the beginner's hall.
The ghosts. Right. Yeah.
Like, what are you doing here? It's been so long, I don't remember who you are.
Yeah, it's all those Shinra grunts you killed in Midgar.
Yeah. I didn't want to remember that.
Oh, now I'm sad.
Reminds me of Metal Gear Solid 3. If you've played it, you know what I mean. Like encountering those you killed.
No thanks.
That's really ominous as someone who hasn't played it.
I don't need that.
Yeah, it's totally a Kojima area, Kojima level, so to speak. It's I also got stuck there, but that's for another time. Because if you haven't played it, I won't spoil it for you.
I really want to play it. So
Yeah, same.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, and I mentioned it before, minigames, love it, love most of them. Some of them that are not too much fun are optional in the Gold Saucer, but there's just one that, why?
There's two for me.
It's just there to kill time. It's just a CPR minigame.
Oh my god, yeah. The CPR minigame is the worst.
It's not really a minigame, it's just catch breath or breathe in like as high as you can, then let it out for like 4 or 5 times or something, and then you're done. And like, okay.
Breathe in.
Yeah.
Breathe
Why
out.
did I do this?
Yeah. You don't even get the reward from that.
I don't even mind that one, but just take out the submarine and the marching in Junon Harbor. I could.
Well, I find it funny.
I
don't
like
know.
the
I
marching.
just,
I like the
it's just
concept of the
hilarious.
marching, but I still haven't figured out how it works.
Oh yeah, like if the funny thing is, I once watched a video with someone explaining how you get max points, and it doesn't make sense at all. You just have to do everything wrong, and then you get the max points.
Perfect.
Basically, it's just
amazing.
I think you have just run in and then just press X all the time, like use your rifle to move it up and down the whole time, and it doesn't really matter where you are. It's just so weird.
Okay.
Weird mechanic.
At least it's not just me, because I never understood that.
No, it's just send some hand grenades or something.
Send that rookie some bombs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Received 6 grenades.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. My issue was with, I guess, the dolphin, like,
Oh, the dolphin.
you know,
too.
to get you up on the top on the whatever it's
Yeah.
called, the scaffolding, like up there. I could not get up there.
Yeah, Mr. Dolphin.
It's not really a mini game. It's just kind of like, I guess,
Oh god, yeah. The pun.
it's like a cutscene. They're trying to make it a cutscene, I think, or like what is it called? Not a cutscene, sorry.
Just
it's like
an interactive
yeah,
scene
like
or something. I don't know.
yes. Remember when those were big? They were like what were they called again?
Quick time events.
Yeah. I think it
They
was like
came
their
later.
idea of like a quick time event, like where it's like, oh, press X now to do this, and it's like kind of fused with a cutscene. But they obviously didn't have the technology to do it, so like, oh, we'll just make you do this. I just could not get up there. I
No.
was so mad. It was very
Yeah.
frustrating. Like, you just take it out. Just don't.
Yeah.
Just stop.
But if you know what to do, it's extremely easy. If you know
yeah,
how
but
to
I
beat
didn't
it.
know what to do.
Just-
That's
Me
the
neither.
thing.
It took me minutes to get up there as well. Just
Oh
like
my
reposition
God.
myself. Oh no, I missed it by 1 pixel. Oh no, just reposition a little bit. Oh no, it's too far. And come on. And then I read the strategy guide and it says, "Don't move. Press X twice, and you're good." Like what?
Yeah, but not everybody.
Seriously?
That's the thing, man.
I
I never had a strategy guide.
I can't believe
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII pioneered QuickTime events.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the experience, Hanny, you had with the dolphin jumping, is you kept trying to get it very precise, and then you just gave up and started hitting like X over and over again. It just gave it to you.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I think that's what happened to me as well. Like, I was trying to be too precise, but it's where it's like, I guess, I don't know what the input lag is from the controller to the console, if any, but I don't know. Anyway, I could not get up there. Super annoying.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to move on here. I'm going to talk a little bit about my dislikes or things that I had an issue with the game. So for me, weapons are not upgradable, which was annoying for me because I had favorite weapons that I wanted to use like later on in the game. You know what I mean? And obviously Cloud has his, iconic Buster Sword, but eventually it just becomes Like, I mean, you can do, there's different strats. You can do whatever you want. You can play, like, there's a strat where you just play the whole thing with, like, the nail bat or whatever. And, like, that's what you do.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's fine. But I would have liked to have been able to upgrade my weapons so that it just makes them more usable, I guess, you know, throughout the game, like later parts, if you have a favorite weapon.
I want to just use mop for the rest of my life, really. Just to...
Yeah. Mop. And the umbrella.
Oh, I never saw umbrella.
Yeah, it's Aerith's choke weapon. Everybody has a choke weapon, and Aerith's is the umbrella.
Oh my gosh, I have so much stuff to go look up after this.
Yes.
Time for a joke run.
You're going to have to replay it again.
Oh, yeah.
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 But I don't know if it was like a technological kind of limitation where they couldn't like code that in, like upgrades for weapons. But I did like that, like obviously each one had different stats and they had different materia slots. So they did make it kind of like more customizable there where you could like put more materia or I don't know. But yeah, it was kind of disappointing for me because I wanted to use Buster Sword like
right
more often, I guess. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to use it. Also that obviously like they didn't change certain things where they didn't change like how they looked. You know what I mean? How you could equip like different things like a bracelet or, you know, a bangle. Like it didn't show that, you know, on the character, which I really wanted or, you know, would appreciate, but
it's too small, I guess.
Yeah, technological limitations, like the pixels, obviously, you know, they didn't have enough pixels to be able to use to create that, I guess, to put them on the character or whatever. So I understand, but anyway. Yeah, and like Vyzz said, some annoying mini games, just really annoying. That made me, you know, throw my controller at the wall or at my TV, actually. And then my mom would rush in and be like, "What are you doing?"
Oh boy.
And then she would literally rip the console out. She would like literally rip it out of the wall. The power would just come right out. Oh yeah. She would rage. She'd rage at me because I'd get mad and then I'd throw the control. Not very often, but sometimes.
I can think of one specific time.
You rage at the TV. Yeah, I throw my controller at the TV.
Yeah, but then she rages at you. Like, she's not any better than you. So
Exactly. But she doesn't understand. I'm like, no, but come on. And there's no use. But the technology was, I feel like, even more expensive than what it is now, you know? So I can understand. It's like, you don't want to break the TV because that's the only one we have and the only one we will probably have for the next 20 years.
Fair point, yeah.
So, yeah. And finally, I guess it's like hard to tell what's happening sometimes, especially like with the story. I feel like they did the best they could. You know, when it's like fade to black and there's text, but like it's not voice acted. So you're limited to, you know, a kid reading the text on the screen and then also being able to kind of understand exactly what's going on, but also have an understanding about what is it called? Like the subtext, yeah, or like, you know, that sort of thing where you might not be able to understand, I guess, exactly what's happening. It wasn't
like the
until
implications
later.
Of certain things, yeah.
Yes, like with Zach and that whole thing, like that was so hard for me to understand. I'm like, who's this guy? What's happening? Like I didn't get it. I did not get it till later.
I am so lucky that I knew the name Zach before I played the game, because if I hadn't, I would have been like, what on earth is this?
Yes.
I would have been like, what?
I'm like, what?
And there's like, it's so missable. The additional like information you can get about Zach is so easily missable. Like because it's only unlocked as like part of like you know, if you get like all the way through to like Shinra Mansion, and you have to get through like do you have to complete Vincent's side stuff for that one too? Is that I'm trying to remember now.
No.
Okay.
You don't have to do anything, but it's only unlocked after Cloud regains his true memories.
Right.
Then you can just go back to the tanks in the Shinra Mansion, the library, and then start the scene. Yeah.
But why would you ever go back?
Yeah, I was so traumatized.
Exactly.
I would never go back. Like I was so traumatized by Shinra Mansion.
I was just so confused, you know. I remember being really confused. I'm like, okay, so there's Zach and what's happening with him, and I'm like, I didn't really get it. So as a kid, like I was just like, okay, that happened. Let's move on with the story now. You know what I mean? It wasn't until later when I was like, oh my God, Like, this is wow. And then it kind of blew my mind.
In my first playthrough, I didn't even see that scene. I didn't know it existed. And like years later,
really?
I saw it in a strategy guide. Like, what? Who is this black-haired guy? Like, I
Yes.
knew that he existed. Like, you see him on the photograph and in the flashback, in the true flashback.
Yeah, on the photograph, that was for me too, because I was like, wait, what?
But otherwise, nothing.
Yeah.
Well, if you go to Gongaga, and Gongaga is also completely missable, you can also go there but not visit his parents. So,
Right.
like, basically everything that's not main story related, you can completely miss. And then you only know, oh, there was just another soldier. But more you don't know.
And then
Yeah.
in addition, you don't get the second part of that, where if you don't have Tifa in your party, you don't get the like weird like Tifa freaking out over hearing the name
Yeah.
Zach.
Or Aerith.
Yeah, and Aerith as
Mm.
well.
Yeah.
That's true.
And also, that's so early in the game from when you like learn
Yeah.
anything
It
more
is.
about Zack. Like,
Mhm.
you could have completely forgotten that.
Yes.
I just want to throw it out there though, Shinra Mansion, love it. I think it was like
Oh,
my
no.
favorite area of the game. But I'm into that. I love Halloween. I love like the dark, like horror type of stuff, and that kind of like brought it there for me. You know what I mean? It was creepy, and just the music, and also the enemies as well were kind of like weird. You know what I mean?
I would
And then
completely agree with all of that.
Vincent in a casket. You know what I mean? Just like I loved it
Yeah.
as a kid.
Oh, I
just-
absolutely adore the aesthetic. Like I'm a big same. Like I love Halloween. Like I've got a bunch of like pumpkin and ghost tattoos, things like that. Like I'm huge spooky boy, but just the absolute nightmare I had trying to defeat Lost Number was so
Whoa.
yeah,
rough that
yeah,
that's the only reason I don't like Shinra Mansion. Everything else around Shinra Mansion was so good. The aesthetic, the good like that story, you know, edition that you get is just so fantastic.
Mhm.
But that boss
And
was
the enemy
so
design.
hard. Oh yeah, and the enemy design's so cool, like the reflect mirrors that reflect everything
Yes.
back
Yeah.
at you, or the guy like
yeah.
just hanging from the anchor from the ceiling like the like merman. Like what? I love this. It's
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
It's so weird, but I love it.
Like, his bottom part of the body is this sickle blades, whatever that thing is. It's so strange.
God, it looks like a torture device or something.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
just one of Hojo's
It's like
experiments.
what's going on in what's going on in Shinra Mansion, guys?
Some of the enemy designs in that, I was so convinced because they were so bonkers that I thought there had to be more to them. Like, there has to be a reason. Like, there's the two-headed like zombie thing in the basement, like
Mhm.
yin and yang.
Yeah, I was about to say yin yang.
Like,
Yeah.
what the hell is the deal with that? What's up with the blade guy? So I would look these characters up, be like, what's the backstory to these? Nothing. They're just regular enemies.
No. Yeah. But when you know that it's the Shinra Mansion where Hojo experimented on Cloud and
Mhm.
Zack, then you know, okay, it's
Exactly.
probably Hojo's
Could
experiments.
be like experiments. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love that area. And also we get some backstory, you know, for Sephiroth as well, which I
Right,
felt
right.
for
Yes.
me at the time was like, just gave more depth to the character. And then I felt bad for him, actually. That's when I was like, oh,
Mhm.
that's poopy.
big poopy, definitely.
Big
Yeah,
poopy.
yeah.
Can't
I was gonna
agree.
say, yeah.
No good with poopy.
Yeah.
And then he ignited his farts and Nibelheim burned to cinder.
Oh god.
That's the
Oh
director's
my
cut of the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't wait to get through that one.
God. Wow. So yeah, that's about it for me for my issues or dislikes with the original. So Chris, did you want to talk about yours?
Yeah, I think you two have covered a good majority of it. I would go a little more specific with the difficulty to understand, though. And the translation in some areas is
Oh, yeah.
so confusing to the point that it
Mhm.
leads you in the wrong direction.
Yeah, that's true.
So I would say that on top of the like kind of difficult figuring out where you're supposed to go is another big pain point for me. And even seeing
Attack when its tail is up.
Yeah, oh my god, yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's bad. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, and that's within the first 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's people who stopped playing at that moment because they couldn't get past that because it doesn't make sense. Like, they just straight up tell you the wrong thing to do just because of how.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well,
Yeah.
to be fair, the second line then tells you, and it will attack with its lasers. Like, it tells you what to do and then tell you why not to do it. That's probably the confusing thing, because you read the first line and then you don't really read the second line, or you do read it and read it in a way how you understand the first, and then it's confusing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very confusing. And also, how many times in battle do you get dialogue pop-ups? Right?
Not
like
too much.
Yeah, so like usually you're kind of moving the pace of the dialogue box yourself and choosing how quickly to read it. But when one of the first dialogues you see, it shows you one line of text, and you just have to assume like, oh, this is what they're telling me. Let's go attack it. And I don't know.
Yep.
But yeah, just the translation in some areas is pretty frustrating.
I played it in German, and I don't know how off the German version was, but I'm pretty sure it also had a few issues.
I believe it, yeah. But I think the only other thing is, I guess, a mechanical choice, but not allowing your entire party to gain experience.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it kind of does. Like the ones you don't have in your party, or active battle party, gain like half of the experience or something.
Yeah,
I think it was half the experience. But still, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, when they throw so many good characters at you, and you want to like play around with all of them and keep them all in your party, it doesn't give you a great way of being able to go back and forth, I guess. But yeah, I think on top of everything else you two have mentioned, those are the big pain points for me.
Yeah.
I think for me, my biggest pain point is probably the confusion around what to do or where to go. And there's kind of like two halves of that. Like, the what to do is like the story driven or like the direction driven choice they make to like not spoon feed you. I am very used to being spoon fed anymore. I got into MMOs. I got missions and then a little marker on a map, and it's like, go here, kill 10 of this enemy, go back, do like, collect things, and then go back, collect your reward. So like, by the time I got into this game, I was like, I've literally lost any skill at like inference or like understanding like subtext. So like, I didn't get a lot of times like where I was supposed to be going or what I was supposed to be doing. And then the other thing that was frustrating in tandem with that was, I think you both, actually, I think all of you touched on this earlier, but just the visually not understanding where to go sometimes was really difficult with the mixture of like textures and backgrounds. Like, I didn't know sometimes if things were like climbable or not climbable, or walkable or not walkable, or like what is a path and what isn't a path, and that did get frustrating a lot. I had some frustration with the controls, but I think that's on us rather than anything else, because we played it with a PS4 controller through Steam and a weird mapper, and it was just not the same experience. I was playing it on a PS1 with a PS1 controller, or even a keyboard for that matter, right? Like, at first I was going to play it with a keyboard, but by virtue of doing it with a podcast, playing a mechanical keyboard while recording isn't very fun for the editor on the other side. So ended up just playing with a DualShock 4 controller and had a lot of issues with that. But I think that, like I said, that's mostly on us. But yeah, the confusion and the textures were very hard for me to discern sometimes. And I'd say it was probably the biggest gripe I had, which is probably really good considering like this is a long game, like with a lot of areas for gripe. But I did also wish that there had been, I think my other biggest gripe is that I don't think Vincent or anything around Vincent's character should have been optional.
Yes, I meant to touch on that, actually.
Yep.
There's too much missable things that are like so story relevant.
Yes, I think anything around Zach, anything around Vincent, anything around Sephiroth's backstory, or anything around any of the main characters, like direct backstory that is missable, should not have been. because
Yeah.
when I play a game that's as full as this, like I don't want to miss a thing, right? And I could have easily just skated by, never got Vincent, and then never got any of the, paths with Lucrezia or with Hojo or Professor Gast or anything like that, or only the hints that you get in the main line. But I don't think any of that should have been missable. I think that's
100%.
really
it's almost a travesty.
Yeah, like I had some gripes with some other mini games for sure. CPR was just kind of stupid. Marching, I never figured out marching. And the submarine was just such a nightmare. I don't even want to talk about it right now. Still, like it's still too recent. But like the submarine minigame is awful. I hate it. I hate it so much. But like, yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's almost hard to come up with things I don't like though. Like because my gripes are very minor, I imagine, in the grand scheme of things. Because okay, like I don't want to miss anything. Sure, I could have played with a game guide if I hadn't been doing it for a podcast, for realistic reactions. So not a big deal. Where to go, same thing. Game guide or just slowing down and just understanding, a little bit more. But
more frequently than once a week.
Right.
Sometimes like whole months between recordings.
Yeah, and I mean when the pandemic started, we took something like a 3-month break or something. And we had. It was a lot. So like there's like just being able to sit down and grind is a much different experience than trying to make a weekly recording session. But I think overall though, like I my gripes are really minor. Like I wish a couple things had been done better. I wish the translation had been better in some parts.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wish some other things were clear. Like there's like one scene that I still want to know what is happening in, that is a special in Wall Market where you like look through the keyhole and you see them like acting out some weird play. I need to know what that is, but I don't think it's ever really been like fully understood what is happening there.
It's inferred that this is President Shinra cosplaying as King Arthur, and the others have to play along with him. It's just his kink.
That is I kind of I'm not sure that I wanted that cleared up for me now.
Do you know what happens in the other keyhole?
Is that
with the two old people?
So I think that one I was gathering that it was Reeve's parents visiting from out of town.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. Which I thought was delightful.
I can't believe Reeve didn't set his parents up somewhere better than the Honeybee Inn.
Right?
This is also the man who pretends to be a giant mohawk with a cat riding it for the majority of the game.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's valid.
Yeah. He's a weird one for sure.
Good thing he's my favorite character.
Like Reeve or Ketchy?
Ketchy.
Oh, okay.
Or as I like to call him, Kate Sith.
Yeah.
Because I'm garbage.
No, it doesn't matter.
Apparently, it did. I think there was something where they said it was Kate Sith. That was the
in
actual
Advent Children, I think they
pronunciation.
call him Kate Sith, or was it in no, not Advent Children, in Dirge of Cerberus? Somewhere, I think
Something like that. Yeah.
Somewhere they call him that. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Absolutely everything that you said. Like, mostly the missable things, that aren't, I guess, required. Like, the side characters like Vincent or Yuffie or things that you can just miss, especially too if you don't know, if you're not using a guide or you're not using, like people to tell you these things, which at the time for us, like when we played it as kids, it was mostly like word of mouth, right?
Right.
So, oh, don't forget to go here. Don't forget to do this. You'll find a guy. Okay, yes, he's like in a casket, but blah, 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 like whatever. It's like, what? Like, okay. And then you go and you do it and you learn more things. But now it's like, it's kind of like the opposite in storytelling, especially too in video games now, where it's like, you're just spoon-fed everything and they literally tell you everything. And there's no kind of like leave things up to your not imagination, but just like trying to figure it out on your own. It's like, you know what, we're smart, we can figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, give us some time. You don't need to tell us everything. And I find this a lot too with movies, especially like nowadays, or like blockbuster movies, where it's just like explosion, like and it's just like telling you everything instead of just letting us figure it
Yeah.
out, which I prefer. Like, I don't want to be told everything, but this, especially being a kid, no internet, no game guide, nothing. Like, I totally think absolutely that these things, should have been required for you to go through these story beats, because there's so much that it's a shame that you missed these things. And I'm sure there are people out there that played this game that still to this day probably don't even know that like these things exist, in the story.
For sure.
Which is sad. It's unfortunate, but I think it was due to, was it a time constraint, or they
Yeah,
didn't have
it
enough
was.
time to put them in? So instead of axing them completely, at least they kept them in as side characters. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Which is good, but it's kind of a shame. But
It is. But still, we got Vincent and Yuffie, and especially Vincent became a fan favorite. So
yeah,
Which is really funny because I don't overly enjoy him all that much in the OG. But again, I think it's just because I think Lost Number just ruined everything for me.
probably, yeah.
It was really bad. I don't know how clear it is in the episode we released or anything like that, or if you guys have even heard it, but Chris can vouch for how just purely frustrated and upset I was by the end of that recording.
It was the most deaths we've had in a single recording. I think we stopped at
God.
it was 6 when we ended. So
Help.
yeah, not ideal.
No good.
No.
I might have listened to that one. Is that the one where you raged a lot? There's a lot of swearing.
Probably.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm an angry person by nature, so that might not be specific enough.
That was the first recording we ended earlier than we wanted to, because it was just not a fun time anymore.
Yeah, it was like there's no way this is gonna like turn out positively for us.
I had a good time.
Yeah, for sure he did.
Yeah.
All right, so I just want to know, who's your favorite character?
Mine?
Yes.
He wasn't joking.
You said Kate Sith,
He was
right?
not joking.
I was not joking. It is actually Kate Sith.
Okay. Cool.
Oh no, it's not cool, is it?
Respect.
That's amazing.
Respect.
That's amazing.
I just think that Reeve goes through a lot of trouble to do the right thing while still trying to hide. Like, so Ketchi is obviously ridiculous, right? Like, it's a little stuffed animal. Like, that's absolutely bonkers. But I think Reeve did so much for the party by betraying Shinra and by staying so close to danger. Like, he could have betrayed them and just left with Avalanche at some point, like when there's multiple times where Shinra is pretty escapable, like after Genova kills President Shinra and leaves, in Sephiroth's body, there's, or in the form of Sephiroth, like there's a lot of that's an easy moment where like anyone could have just bailed if they wanted to, and then there's several more of those throughout the game. And I think, the fact that he was like, no, I'm going to stay close to the source and just work on trying to figure this out so that I can achieve my ends, which is not the same as Shinra's ends, is really honorable. And I just think he's an interesting character, and I think he has some really good dialogue that is not given enough credit. Like, obviously, like some of the dialogue in the game is really good anyway. Like Sid has some amazing lines as this Cloud.
Oh yeah.
Yes. With their speeches, they're like kind of rallying speeches. Obviously, Barrett, Tifa, Aerith all have great lines too. But then Ketchi just shouldn't have these lines that are so good. But like, if you think about like when the temple's collapsing, he's like, well, it just makes sense for me to stay behind and like do this so that everyone can be safe and and do this. And it's like, oh wow, like even though there's not a real sacrifice because he is a stuffed animal at that point, or a robot being controlled like remotely, it's still just, it hits more than I thought it was going to. And I really just,
it does actually,
yeah, and I just found it really endearing, and at that point I just started kind of turning, and I was like, this character's really good. And I'm like, and then there's obviously the fun part of it just becomes kind of a meme within our own community, where it's like, oh, Haney loves this character and Chris hates it, and it's really funny. But he's a good character. Kate Sith president. Kate Sid for president.
Support us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally don't mind him either. It's just I like the others more.
It's really
But,
hard
yeah.
to choose though, because the characters are so good. If it wasn't
Yeah.
if it
they
wasn't
are.
Kate Sith, it would probably be Sid for me, which is interesting
Mm.
because Sid is really not good. Like he's actually
No.
he's not a good person. Like like for a
No.
majority of it, he's awful to Shira, and
Yes.
At first.
and super and super just like not super gruff and super unlikable, but like he just makes sense to me in a way where I'm just like he's real. Like he's just a
Yeah,
real
he's real.
gruff kind of guy who's who tries so hard to be not caring until it's obvious that he cares. And like I think
Exactly.
the moment that turned really hard for me with Sid was when you're on Rocket 2026, like you're not escaping, being thrown at Meteor with the big huge materia on board, and he's like
Mhm.
gets so angry at Shira for sneaking on board, and then he has that moment of like where he notices that like the oxygen tank or whatever actually does have a fault, and he's like, oh crap, she was right. And it's just like, oh, it's just so good. He has such a turning moment there where you're like, oh, he cares. He just doesn't want to be seen as caring.
Exactly.
Yes.
I really, really enjoy that about him. But like, again, it's just, it's so hard to choose because the characters are all just so good. Like I could find
They
moments
are.
for everyone where I'm like, oh, well, I love this point. For the longest time, Barrett was my favorite character because he starts out of the gate just so good. Like, so like, yes, like he's an action star. Like this is awesome. And then he has his whole like his storyline with Dine and with like learning that about Marlene, like
It's gruesome.
it's so gruesome. That is
Mhm.
so upsetting. And like the Dine stuff is just really, really awful. And like I had no idea that until I got to that point. I knew Marlene. I had seen Marlene. Like at first I thought it was Cloud's daughter. At first, because of some weird translation stuff with like when you walk into the seventh heaven, she like runs up to you and like yells "Papa," and then just like I was like, "Wait, what?" And then runs by you, and it's like, "Oh, okay." But there's like a learning that it's not, like Marlene isn't Barrett's kid. So late in the game, or not his biological kid, I should say, is so bonkers because even by that point, I was just not expecting that.
Yeah.
And just really, really enjoy Barrett. Really enjoy. I mean, they're all good. I'm gonna stop because I will just go
know.
one by one for the next hour.
Yeah, I don't know why I ask this, honestly. And I feel exactly the same way as you, where the characters are so good and they're kind of like relatable, with their backstories and everything they've gone through to the point where, you actually are introduced to them in the game and you find out more as you go along and you kind of find a little bit of yourself in each one of these characters.
Right.
And that's why I find it they're so relatable, and playing it, especially too as a kid, like for me, it just felt like they were my actual friends. Like I was with them, through this game. I was there, and this is what was happening, and it just made me feel, included. Especially too, like growing up, I was different. I was ostracized. I was bullied. Things, I've talked about this before, but it just kind of gave me an escape. And also I felt like, I fit in with this group of people who also had things like very terrible, dark things happen to them.
And they're all a group of like misfits too that are bonded together too, which always just makes it so much easier to relate. As
Exactly.
same, like I'm no stranger to being a misfit. I was a big kind of outcasty boy at different times in my life for liking different stuff and not being like into the norm things. And that's just the playable characters too that we've touched on. There's so many NPCs that are great too, and not even great as in they're enjoyable characters. Like even the awful characters are really great because they make you actually hate them. Like Professor Hojo and Don Corneo are two of the best characters in the game because you hate them so viscerally, right? Like you feel
so slimy.
You feel like
they're so evil.
Like how evil they are. How like how bad they are, and are so unrepentant and so unforgivable in like their actions, and you're like, I hate you so viscerally, but that makes you a great character because I can't find redemption in you because you've done like the
Yes,
writers did
exactly.
such a good job of creating these characters that they aren't redeemable.
Yeah.
You know, but then there's other characters where it's like the Turks, you know, like I loved the Turks too because like once Shinra fell, they were like, yeah, we were in this for the paycheck. Paycheck seems like it's out. We have no beef with you. We're done. And they just walk away.
Yeah,
And it's like,
exactly.
oh, okay, cool. Like I like, and those characters are super relatable to me too, because it's like, I'm thinking about, you know, my job and I'm like, yeah, if that paycheck stops coming, I'm out. Like there's no reason for me to stick around here. Right. Like, I'm like, I get it.
Agreed.
Like I absolutely get that. Like from them, like yeah, they're not loyal because they're loyal. They're loyal because
Exactly.
they're loyal to, you know, their job for the benefits and the pay. And as soon as that's over, they're like, we literally don't care what you do, like at all. They just do not care about what the heroes and what Avalanche are up to, as long as they were getting paid for it. And I really enjoy that too, because it's just very relatable. And yeah, they're just like, all the characters are so good across so many different places. And there's like, you know, like really random like characters that you get attached to too. Like in like Chris and I got really attached to the pilot of the Highwind, the like learner pilot.
Oh, that one,
yeah.
that levels up.
Yeah, like because he's great. Like we gave him a voice and we gave him like his own like little like in our minds like kind of storyline and stuff. Like, and it's really fun because like there's enough ambiguity but also enough direction where you can do stuff like that.
For sure.
Definitely. Yeah, it's definitely a very, very hard question to answer, because maybe you've seen it, maybe not, but Sector 6, a YouTuber, has a series which is still ongoing. It's the Big Seven, where he talks to members of the community for Final Fantasy VII and asks them all the same 7 questions about the original and remake. And one question is also, which character do you like the most? And I was like, I don't know. But at the end, I settled for Cloud for one specific reason, because he's the perfect blend between an avatar for the player and his own character with his own personality, own backstory, and integration into the whole story and the plot and the world. But still, he's still this kind of vessel for the player. So you can insert yourself into him, and you can choose certain answers to questions or statements from other NPCs and stuff. And he also learns new things throughout the story, even if you should know most of them. And those things he does know, he tells you as the player. Like he explains to others how the system works, how this works, how Shinra is, and then you learn from Cloud. But then Cloud learns more about himself throughout the story, and you learn also more about the story through him. So this is the answer I gave, because just by looking at the characters themselves, it's not impossible to choose. There's so many great characters.
Absolutely.
I think one last thing I'd like to say about Cloud, if I may, is how much he in particular subverted my expectations of what I was going to expect going into the game, because I thought he was going to be, you know, like kind of shitty personality, like little like pretty emo boy who is, you know, everything's come easy to him. He's athletic, he's pretty, he's, you know, he's the top dog and soldier, and now he's just decided to like come off, and you know, and they build him up so you think that, you know, you're like, oh yeah, he's going to be this like shitty jock who's really good at everything and really funny. And then you're like, no, he's not at all. He's just been unreliable as a narrator the entire time. And I was just not expecting my main character to lie to me, you know? Like, and like, I don't know how else to say it, but that's essentially what happens is, you know, he's unreliable as the story driver for the game until he gets his real memories. And it's so great.
It's not that he's lying to you, it's that he does actually believe
he's lying
that
to himself.
Who he is as a person. He doesn't know who he is. He thinks that that's who he is and who he's always been up until a certain point, and then he realizes that that's not actually who he is, and then he has an identity crisis, like, who am I? You know, who was I, and who can I become?
Yo, that was so sad.
You know, which is really crazy when you think about it for storytelling. Absolutely. And, you know, once again, relatable to, you know, people who, you know, are playing this game and also thinking, you know, I might think that I am this person like my whole life, or, you know what I mean?
Oh,
And then
yeah.
you're finding more things about yourself as you go along, when it's like, you know what, I'm not actually that person, you know, and I'm going to forge ahead and decide who I am. I'm not going to let those things kind of determine, you know, like who I am.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a little bit of a take on it too, where, you know, I played it as an adult who, you know, I'm fairly certain of myself at this point in my life, right? You know, I'm 30, like I have my career set, you know, I like what I like.
Are you really?
Yeah, that's very fair.
I'm taking your word for
yeah.
it. I don't know. Are you an unreliable narrator?
That's probably true. Yeah. But like I really enjoyed being able to look back at who I was at, you know, the same age as Cloud, or the same age, or even younger, you know, when Cloud leaves you know, Nibelheim, or when, you know, or now, you know, going through that same kind of process with Zach of like trying to figure out who you are, and like remembering like how I felt at that point. But also I don't relate anymore to that as much, because I feel like I know who I am and I'm pretty confident. So it's interesting where I feel like I got a lot playing it as an adult. I also missed some playing it as an adult, where I would have related, I think, much harder to Cloud if I had played this game during the, you know, my peak of youth of, I have no idea who I am, what I want, what I like, what I don't like. You know, like, I mean, I used to say stuff just for the sake of like, of having something to say, right? Like about like having an opinion on a band that like I used to say I hated Fall Out Boy. They're one of my favorite bands. Like I, you know, like it's just, it was just something to like to fit in and to like to, you know, try to enjoy in conversation and things like that. And my wife loves bringing this up a lot. She knew me in high school, so she'll bring these up a lot. These points where I was just like, yeah, so unsure of myself, and I would just kind of have all this bluster around myself just to seem more confident. And it's interesting because I can look back and remember how I felt in that time, you know, as closely as I can, and relate it to how I perceived Cloud feeling, but it's not the same as being in that age of uncertainty and playing along with someone who's also uncertain.
All right. So what do you think, Chris? Favorite character?
I mean, I think Vyzz put it perfectly. It's always been Cloud for me. I think he fits so well into the story, and the story subverts what you're expecting so well.
It does.
And I, you know, when I was playing this for the first time, I was grown up in that peak age range to really appreciate kind of, I think, what he was going through at the time. So I think he's perfect. But someone who's been coming up really fast on my list has been Aerith, who I really didn't appreciate as much as I do now when I played through it the first couple times.
She's really fun. She's really, really fun.
She's really good. And
yes,
I think probably back in the day when I was younger, it was always kind of, and actually still these days, if you go by Twitter, it's either you're a fan of Tifa or you're a fan of Aerith. And that's so unfair to both of them. I mean, they're both such incredible characters, and they're both so good in their own right. But, you know, back when I played it when I was younger, I was like, oh no, I like Tifa, or, you know.
Yeah. I think I had started off that way too, where I was like, oh, like I'm only thinking about this as a romance, like in the terms of a romantic interest, which is a huge disservice to both characters, like you were saying. But like, I definitely have my preference for a romantic interest still for Cloud, but it doesn't change how awesome the other character is regardless.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, Aerith is just such a good character.
She is.
I don't know if you noticed, but I sidestepped coming out real loud and saying which side of the divide I fell on there real hard.
I'm not putting that out there.
Nope, me either. I like my quiet titter.
I think Aerith is a really good parallel to Cloud, because she, not that she has an identity crisis, but she also kind of is with one foot in one world and with the other foot in the other world.
Yeah.
She's a Cetra, but she's also herself, like how she grew up, her time with Elmira, for example.
Right,
and
yeah.
she has a personality. She wants to just in the end see the world when she eventually gets out of Midgar and gets accustomed to the whole world, this whole scary world. And she has an eye for the future. She knows that she wants to do more and stuff, but she still has this weight on her shoulders from a whole civilization, so to speak, when she's the last one of them, and she has kind of a duty to complete her calling, so to speak. And this is kind of this divide between those two aspects of her that make her so so compelling, I think. How she handles it.
And also, setting her alongside Cloud, she's probably the only one who understands that Cloud isn't really who he is. And you don't... at least myself, I didn't really understand what she was trying to do most of the game until I was much older. And it's interesting to see her interact with different characters, kind of understanding where she's coming from.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes with her is when she's scalping all the people buying flowers outside of the Honeybee Inn. And if you talk to each one of them, she charged them a different price, and you're like, this is like one of the like really like early inklings where it's like, oh, she's really fun and she's really clever.
Yeah. I mean, talk about subverting expectations. Just putting her as the role of the like cleric of the party completely sets your expectations and sets her up for blowing them completely out of the water. It's so good.
Yeah. That's also very interesting, the duality between Aerith and Tifa. They look and are designed, and in battle are designed a certain way that you expect a certain character, but their characters are actually just flipped around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's really good.
Also, I have to throw out Yuffie, because she's just wonderful. Just have to put that out there.
She's fun.
She's like the only character that I'm just kind of like meh on. She's still really fun though.
Like she's probably the only character of the main party. Like she's got some baggage, but she's still somewhat removed from the rest because she's like
she's the only one who's not so emotionally damaged.
Yeah, she's just kind of doing her own thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
She's a couple years younger than the rest of them. She's just along for the adventure, it feels like, which I'm pretty about.
I don't think they touched on it enough in OG though, but I bet she's probably under the surface a lot more damaged and has more baggage than you would expect due to growing up in Wutai during the war.
Oh, I'm sure.
As we see in Crisis Core, right? Like, yeah, it's funny like when she runs out and she's like, you know, like windmilling at Zack basically, and he's just like, yeah, okay, kid, you keep defending Wutai, and then it's just like, you know, you kind of smile, and then like in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I just like massacred a bunch of her friends and family.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Not great.
Not ideal.
No.
Yeah. Like there's probably a lot more there that could be touched on with Yuffie, I bet.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how great her relationship is with her father.
Very true, yeah.
You can kind of see that where she seems like she's naive but like overconfident, but I feel like that's probably a self-confidence issue coming from the fact that she's probably not like, she wants love from her father, and I don't know how much of that, you know, he gave her. So she's more like confident, but it's fake confidence because she's trying to convince herself that this is who she actually is. But also she's young and a little bit naive, so you can confuse those kind of character traits because it might seem like she's immature, but it's actually that she's just putting on a front. Like she's trying to be, you know, more like self-confident, but she actually isn't sure.
Well, I mean, she's a kid.
She's she's the youngest. I was gonna say she's the youngest party member, right? At 16, is it?
Yep, 16.
Like that's, you know, she's definitely at a point where a lot of people, I think, put on airs, just to get by. You know, when in a crowd, you know, pretend to be the cool guy, pretend to be the like badass, etc. Like I've done it. Yeah.
Haven't we all?
Yeah.
To some degree, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna go and say my favorite character is Red 13, Nanaki, and I know we haven't really talked about Nanaki very much, but yeah, he's just I don't know, he's just my favorite character. And I do tend to like the animal characters in games because I kind of like animals more than other humans, to be honest.
That's very fair.
Yeah.
I've met other humans. I get it.
Yeah.
You know, and just everything that he's gone through, and
My house also has more pets than people, so
It's probably also why I have this avatar, not some
Yes.
human.
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Nanaki's backstory was actually the first time, I believe, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was the first time I cried while playing the game.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we all cried.
You weren't there.
We
when
all
one-
No, I mean, God, that was just talk about one of the best writing sections in a game. Like that first pass through of Cosmo Canyon is
Mhm.
still in my top 3 moments in the game.
I know.
Just amazing.
It's really good.
I think that's the first moment in the game that actually caught me by surprise. I was not expecting to see, the petrified remains of his father. That was brutal.
Exactly. Mhm.
Yeah.
Really
And then
dark.
he went through his whole life thinking his father was like terrible.
A coward. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
he was like shunned and just this terrible person.
And I bought it.
you know, imagine.
Like I believed it. I was like, yeah, okay.
yeah.
I'm a huge sucker for that storyline, you know, like the village outcasts because of like the sins of the past or the parents or etc. Like it makes me think of like the original Naruto. If you're familiar, like just like how Naruto is so unfairly treated and bullied like in his village because of something he absolutely has zero control over or knowledge
Yeah.
about. And it's like, yeah, it's such a good writing like trope.
Absolutely.
It is. What's also very interesting from my part is when I first played it, it didn't really emotionally crush me or something because I probably wasn't emotionally mature enough or was too focused on the gameplay, I don't know. But afterwards, when I replayed, every time I replayed or see the scene again, it hits more every time.
Yeah.
But not the first time,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I've definitely had that before too, where for me it's a little different with Final Fantasy VII, but like where I'll listen to an episode after like we're done like with an edit, like when we're doing like quality like controls, right? And I'm like re-listening to a part and I'm just like I'll start sobbing listening to the recording of it, but I'm like in the moment I'm like, oh, nothing's happening. Like I'm just like making a stupid joke or something, but I'm like inside I'm broken.
Yeah, that happens to me a lot when we're watching other people play a certain game and an emotional part comes up. And while playing the game myself, like maybe a month earlier or something, it didn't really hit home. But then when I watch someone else play, I know what happens. I kind of, it's this very peculiar effect that when you know what happens, it kind of hits harder. And especially when you also watch somebody else then react to it, it's like this weird amalgamation of I don't know, emotional interconnections or something like that. That's just
it could be that because you know what's being built up, you kind of notice more
Or that,
like supporting little details.
True, yeah, that could be.
It's cool. And also Nanaki is just so good because of like growing up with Bugenhagen, he's just so wise and like knowledgeable.
Oh yeah.
He's always just sitting there calmly and being like, yeah, I know what's up, what we have to do.
Yeah. This old hippie. Yeah. Smoking weed all the time or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Being one with the planet.
Party needs some of him, for sure.
Yeah.
Clearly, weed was legalized in Midgar way before it was.
Yeah.
Delightful.
I do believe at one point what I thought was super awkward was didn't they have like Nanaki and Eric together in a thing and they were like trying to get them to like
let's be real.
It?
Them being
and I'm
only
like,
Hojo.
Yeah, Hojo's just like, this is how science works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who hired this
and
guy?
Two
as a
extinct
kid, I was
species,
like,
let's put them together.
I'm like, is this happening? Like right now? This is so weird. And then also I was like, wait, can that actually happen for real? Like as a kid, I'm like, what? No, that's not how it works. But
it turns out.
All right, guys. So moving on to our next section here, we are going to be talking a little bit about Final Fantasy VII Remake. So I thought it would be interesting for us to just talk about, what our hopes and dreams were for Final Fantasy VII Remake. And then I guess, we can kind of go through each person and talk about that. And then we are also going to be talking about, Hanny, how you feel now that you've played through Final Fantasy VII OG. If you're excited for Final Fantasy VII Remake, do you feel even more excited now that you've played the OG? So for our hopes and dreams, Vyzz, did you want to start us off?
For sure. I'll try to conjure up my memory from that point when I got to know that it actually happened. Like, I think I was reading an article the day after E3 where they showed this first teaser trailer and announced it. And afterwards, of course, I had so many thoughts and hopes and dreams and wishes and what have you. And one thing is, of course, yeah, it's a remake, but I already know everything. So please make it in a way that I can re-experience everything again. Like, I know it's kind of almost an oxymoron because, well, I know the story. So it's just playing through everything again, but just that alone didn't really tickle my most inner interest. So I was just hoping, okay, just turn it into something that is more than just one for one remake. Like just every dialogue the same, all the battles the same, everything is the same. Just make something new out of it while still retaining the thing. That's one thing that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And also in the original, it's based on single screens with transitions, and sometimes you can see that between those two screens, a lot of other space has been skipped. And I wanted to see like everything, like all of it. And since it's 3D, which is pretty much a given, that you can, like, when you compare it to Final Fantasy 15 or so, or the others, or even 12, where you can just look all around towns and the areas and the countryside, and just explore everything and look at everything, not just those fixed cameras where you only see what the developers wanted you to see. Like, see different sides to all those locations, and I was really looking forward to that. And of course, getting to know the characters again. Because if I was pretty sure that they wouldn't just like retread the exact same dialogue and the exact same scenes. So there is bound to be like more nuance to everyone, and I was really hyped for that. And since we talked so much about music before, a remade soundtrack. There are other Final Fantasies that have been remade, and also fans have created like remixes and arrangements for tracks, and I'm stoked for every new version of a track I love.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's something official, then I'm in, mate. I'm in. And yeah, it's, as I said before, the consistency in visuals and experience between field battles, minigames, and CG scenes. I was looking forward to more consistency between everything. Like that those look the same. And what I also had in mind, I was kind of going through my head, how could they create the battle system? Like I was pretty sure for some reason that it wouldn't be just as the same turn-based system on a different map, like this transition into the battle map and then fight the battles there, kind of unconnected to where we actually were. So I thought, real-time battles, how could this work? And yeah, I don't want to go into detail.
I can't say anything.
First that, and second, it would be too long to tell you how I envisioned it back then. But I was pretty stoked for that. And then I found game FAQs, and the fight between real-time battle advocates and turn-based fanatics was just unbearable after some time. So yeah. that's my point, or my points.
All right, Chris. Did you have any hopes and dreams for Remake?
So I was kind of in a strange position because I'm not normally someone who does go out and like devour information about new releases. I like to kind of experience them the first time myself. But also, I had just been burned a little bit by the Versus 13 and that whole development. And then
me too.
What came out versus what I had wanted. So I was trying to step back a bit from that and not really think too much about the remake. But I remember being really excited about the possibility of exploring Midgar completely and not being locked to a couple screens like you said kind of is.
Yeah.
But I remember also being very nervous about the battle system because I really like turn-based combat or the ATB in the original. And I didn't think that they would be going in that direction simply because it's been a little while since a lot of studios did kind of put out purely turn-based combat. But I knew I didn't want completely action-based. So I was really nervous about where they would fall on that side. And the other thing, I guess I was mostly just nervous because I really wanted this to be good.
A lot of people were.
Yeah, same.
But I was a little wary of what they would do with Cloud's personality and Sephiroth in the game. Because, as we all know, Sephiroth didn't show up really until much, much later in the game, in the original. And Cloud, kind of after OG, a lot of his personality has been boiled down to a very one-dimensional character.
Unfortunately,
yeah. And Hanny, you kind of gave explanation to why that would make sense in other games, where he hasn't been the focus too much. But I was pretty nervous
that they were going to carry it into the remake too.
Yeah, to see what they would do with that.
That's not going to make sense until quote unquote disc 3. So don't do that.
I wanted the cocky kind of punk Cloud to go into this game, so I was pretty nervous about that. Kind of what they would do with Sephiroth in general, and the combat. I was really nervous about those 3 points, and I was really excited to experience Midgar as like a real live bustling city, in a way that you only could nowadays. That's, I think, what I remember feeling the most about it. And I'm really curious to hear what Hanny has to say about this, because we really haven't talked about Remake much at all. So
yeah, barely at all.
Which is good, because the more we talk, the higher the chance we spoil something.
Yeah, I'm gleaning every last little iota of information you guys innocuously drop. I guarantee you, Chris is going to go over this with an absolute fine-tune comb later, being like, "What did I say? What did Kai say? What did Vyzz say? Yeah. What is happening?"
You have to realize. You have to realize, Hanny, though, the more that you're trying to draw out of this, the more things you're going to be mistaken about. Just kind of making assumptions. So be careful.
Yeah.
Do you, Kai, at this point, I don't think we've heard your hopes and dreams.
Yeah, so for me, it's just similar to, Vyzz and Chris. Obviously, just experiencing it again, but kind of in this, HD, 4K, whatever glory, and having these fully 3D environments, being able to run around and just explore. I wasn't as nervous as Chris, but I was a little like, I guess, apprehensive when we like learned that it was different, right? Like it wasn't just, an HD remaster of the original, which was kind of, to me, was like, I had to learn to kind of accept that and also be open to receiving this game for what it is and not have the expectations of the original placed on this, because it's different. And Hanny, you knew that, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So it's nothing new to you, and it's not just, an HD remaster of the original. It's different. And I would that's what I kind of decided, like, going into it, was that I was going to accept it for what it was, and I had already moved on from the fact that it wasn't just going to be this HD remaster, which I thought that's what I wanted originally. Like, when this tech demo was shown in 2000, and when was that, Vyzz? Like 2006 for PS3. It was like, that's when the rumors started that, oh, they were going to be remaking 7, and it wasn't even real. They hadn't even started, I think, until when, like 2015 or 20...
I think 14 days started pre-production or something. I don't quite remember. Yeah.
But for me, I was excited because they showed like a part of Midgar in 3D for the tech demo to show what the PS3 could do. And I remember seeing it for the first time and like freaking out, because I was like, oh my God, like, imagine if they did this for modern day consoles, which PS3 was like the most modern one. And I was just so excited. But I just really, I really wanted to feel nostalgic, but I also wanted to be surprised. I just didn't want to experience the exact same thing as well, like just like what the original was, but remade. So I kind of came to that conclusion later. Like, I was a little disappointed, but then I was like, no, you know what? I think this is the best thing. And then I'm just, experiencing it as something new and fresh, but also, an excuse to go back to this world and be in this world with these incredible characters again. I'm on board. You know what I mean? And I feel like with 16, I've been a little bit more like Chris was with like, since the disappointment from 15, because I was obsessed with Versus 13, because I really wanted that game, and what we got is not what that was. So I was really disappointed with that. Did I like 15? Yes, I did. I enjoyed it for what it was. And I think Tabata actually did a good job creating what he did, like getting that out, and it's kind of a complete game, but obviously it has its issues. Anyway, in saying that, I feel like more with 16, I'm a little bit more relaxed, because I don't have any pre-existing kind of expectations going into it, because it's just all new. And I'm just excited that, we're going to get a Final Fantasy for PS5. Hopefully, we don't know when, in the next few years, but and a continuation, obviously, like, hopefully having more remake content as well. And yeah, just, I think it's an exciting time, especially to be, a Final Fantasy fan.
Yeah, 100%, I would agree.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
All right, Haney, so what do you think?
So I have a lot of thoughts and feelings. I think for hopes and dreams, my main hope and dream has already been dashed, which is hoping for just an HD remake, because I'm very nervous about things being changed in a game that I just learned to love. And now there's this new game that's coming out here. For everyone else, it's been like 2 decades. For me, it's gonna have been, only a handful of months or years by the time I get to it, and as part of the compilation. So I'm extremely nervous, but also extremely excited about it. And I'm definitely more excited about it since playing like the OG. But I think, aside from just being an HD remake, which obviously isn't going to happen, and aside from being nervous, the joy that I've heard other Final Fantasy VII fans have over their so far experience with remake gives me hope that there should be absolutely no reason why I don't just love it as well as like everyone else does. So I'm very excited. I'm very intrigued to see what changes and what stays the same. One particular point I'm really excited to see how it changed and how it stays the same is Wall Market. I think there's a huge amount of stuff there that's just not gonna fly, like with the ESRB anymore.
Right.
And I'm very curious to see how they handle redoing and changing that section to still kind of convey the original message, but maybe without the explicitness of the original.
Right.
So that's something that I'm pretty excited for. Obviously, just graphics, just seeing people with pumped up graphics is going to be really cool.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I'm pretty sure they have voice actors for the characters. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that'll be really different and interesting because in my head they have voices that I've given them that are not probably going to be met with, the voices from the remake. If there are voice actors. I'm excited for a different battle system. I did not like the battle system from FF7 OG. I don't think I mentioned that when we were talking about dislikes and likes, but
No, we didn't.
That's a big one.
did not.
Wow.
That's a big one.
My apologies for not mentioning it earlier, but I did not
Heresy.
did not like that battle system. I struggled with it aggressively, as Chris can attest to. But I'm not sure.
That sounds like a you problem,
that's what
not a Final Fantasy VII OG
That's what I'm
problem.
hearing from a lot of folks. So
User error.
Hanny, you enjoy turn-based combat, but it's the kind of in between that's a little weird for you.
I don't like the hybrid. The hybrid
Yeah.
method is odd for me. That's actually why I dislike the battle system in Crisis Core more than OG, because they went further into the hybrid without making it make any more sense, and they made it less responsive. So
Oh God,
it's pretty brutal, and I don't think I'm out of my lane by saying that the combat system in Crisis Core is weird and rough. But I know I might be out of my lane in saying that with OG, but I am excited to try a battle system that may or may not be more in line with someone with my particular set of skills or lack thereof.
Question.
Yeah.
Which setting are you using? Like wait, recommended, or active?
Chris?
Active.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, active, because that one's is I'd say the hardest, because
I think we switched.
Oh, did you? Okay.
We switched from recommended to active, I believe.
Oh,
I think we only used wait for a couple bosses.
Yeah, wait in general is not good because it just kills the momentum. It waits too many times, too often.
Yeah.
So recommended is usually good because when you enter a submenu, it stops, but otherwise it keeps going. And if active, it keeps going all the time. So
Yeah.
We were definitely using active the majority of the playthrough.
Yeah.
It's the most fluent one, definitely.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me because you said you're kind of into MMOs, and MMOs for me, it's way too many buttons and everything on screen. The UI usually is crowded, and I find it very difficult to be able to even understand what is actually happening on the screen, let alone choose my abilities or whatever I'm trying to do. I find I don't know. I just can't. I'm not very good at them. Let's just say that.
I got very familiar with hotkeys in MMOs.
Oh my gosh, I'm not a hotkey person.
I'm with you there, Kai. I can't.
I'm not a hotkey person.
I'm a big hotkey person.
People who have those, they have like a mouse with like 50 buttons on it. And I'm like, no, I just want a left and right click.
Give me attack.
That's all
Give me
I want.
Magic. I want my menu combat.
Yeah. Like I don't want so many buttons. Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at for my hopes and dreams, and kind of what I hope changes and everything, and what doesn't change. What things I don't want to change. I don't want them to change any personalities of any characters. I don't want them to change the major story beats, obviously, of like, when certain things happen in the like timeline, right? Like I don't want them to change it, like, who dies here, who lives here, etc., anything like that.
Yeah.
I want the main story to stay intact. I just want to see it fleshed out more in areas where I think it could have been fleshed out better in OG, or more if they had had more time. Yeah.
Interesting.
I still feel like there is no reason why they just can't go back and actually like remaster the OG as well as having this game.
I would
I just
love that.
Like, why not? Why not? They did it to Final Fantasy VIII, didn't they? They have like a remaster Final Fantasy VIII.
Sure did.
Like,
sort of, yeah.
They didn't do that to 7, right? I mean, they have done some things.
They did kind of. It's more like a port, and the backgrounds have been upscaled, and it's rendered at full HD, I think, or 4K. No, not 4K. I think
feel
it's
like
just
they can go back and do a little bit more to it, and maybe I don't know, just upgrade the models or fix them.
Yeah.
I don't know, but and then just package it as like a remaster. You know what I mean? Which is what people want. Give us what we want.
That's what people are
like,
doing
come
too,
on.
right?
Yeah, well, the mod community
mods.
is
Yeah,
huge.
it's crazy.
I mean,
Yeah.
like Sunamods, which is like a huge modding community. We've
Yeah,
had
they're
them
awesome.
both here on the show, and they're amazing. And they're also partnered with the Cosmo Canyon Observatory YouTube channel, obviously, Vyzz's YouTube channel as well. And they've done some incredible work with the original, just, you know, replacing the textures or having like upgraded models that you can download and install, obviously, and play through the game that way. They've added like I think some people, I don't know if it was them particularly, but they've added like more quests, or they've added more story things, or
Yeah, the new threat mod, for example. There was a different team, I think.
oh, okay.
Yeah, but also the Echo S mod, where they introduce voice acting. It's also huge.
Yeah, to the original, which is
Yeah,
what
to the
we're
original,
looking
yeah.
at.
Oh,
Is it
that's
out yet?
bonkers.
I don't think it's out yet.
No, it's not out yet, but I think it's bound to be soon. I'm not quite sure about the timeline.
But yeah, I mean, like, there's such a huge mod community around this game. You know, I feel like Square could do their own thing. You know what I mean? And just repackage it, and people will buy
Oh,
it.
for sure.
I just don't
easy.
understand why they haven't. They have 1 to 6 redone with the pixel remasters, right? That just I don't know if sorry spoilers, but they are re-releasing all the original games with like upgraded pixels or something on the App Store, especially for
Great
iOS.
pixel
and
art,
Oh, that's
Android.
awesome.
Yeah, so like, but 7 is the only one they're not doing, or they haven't like remake. Like, why? What is happening? Hello. Anyway, like remake doesn't replace
Yeah.
that, you know.
Yeah.
And if you go back and replay the original, yeah, it's a little clunky, and it's kind of like it doesn't age as
How
well
dare
as some
you.
of the other Final Fantasy games. But yeah, anyway. Hanny, how do you feel? Like, are you more excited to play remake now that you've played?
Oh, absolutely. I don't
Yeah.
think there's before when I knew the remake was coming at some point, I was just kind of like, yeah, I'll probably pick it up and leaf through it. And now I'm like ravenous, like when can I have this? When can I sink my teeth into this? But you know, I
Well, unfortunately or fortunately, you've left it up to your Patreon subscribers to decide what game you're playing.
Yeah,
that's
next,
true.
Which is good, which is great, but also bad for us because we have to wait longer
yeah.
until you're done before we can have you guys back.
It'll be a great time though.
I can't wait till you're done. I can't wait till you're done and have you guys back again because it's going to be
Me
insane.
too.
It's gonna be
We're
great.
It's
we're
gonna
gonna
be
talk
good.
about so many things.
We're gonna have to have you back like multiple times because there's not enough time to be able to talk. Yeah. Anyway,
Please.
so
Please.
yeah. I like being a guest. It's very fun.
yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
So, any changes that you would want to be made? I know that you talked about like the battle system in the OG.
Yeah,
is
just like I'd like
your
to see a
fave.
different battle system, maybe like maybe a more active like pure active system, like an action game kind of like system, like something like the current God of War. I could see being very fun for me. Or and then a lot of it is more hopes of things that don't change, or they change only in a way that benefits directly me immediately, which is things like expanding out on Zach and Vincent's stories more, and inside of OG, and expanding on Cloud and Zach's relationships. Obviously this is stuff that I put a lot of hope into things that might already exist in other compilation media that I'm just not aware of into this game, because you know I don't know what happens in the other compilation media. I can vaguely remember a couple of scenes from Advent Children, and I know what's going on in Crisis Core where I'm currently at with it, but you know I still don't know anything about Dirge of Cerberus. I don't know anything about Before Crisis or On the Way to a Smile or any of that stuff. So like there's a lot of stuff that's probably been fleshed out already that I'm just unaware of, but I'm putting a lot of hopes about anything that I still feel hasn't been fleshed out being fleshed out in the remake. So any changes that I'd want to see would be just things that doesn't remove anything from the original but only adds to it.
Right.
As a spoiled brat, that's my answer.
I feel like that's asking
It's
a lot.
probably
you know,
asking a lot, but
but is it really?
we'll see.
Yeah.
Are there any other sections of the game you would like to be expanded upon, like learn more about certain locations, side characters, or something?
Yeah, so like
Shinra or Turks?
any of the Turks would be really cool. I'd love to learn more about Sung. He's one of my favorite like non-player characters. That's very fun.
Or
I
Gelnika.
The Gelnika would be really interesting. Just any of the Gelnika.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah, like just more of
yes.
that. I'd also love to know more about Professor Gast and Afalna and their relationship, because
Right.
I don't think it was not very clear to me in the OG how they went from him studying her to them falling in love and having a baby.
Yeah.
Like that's a
True.
big
Yeah.
step, if you ask me, for a scientist and his specimen to take. So, I mean, maybe not for Professor Hojo, but Gast seemed like relatively okay, I guess. Maybe not good, but okay.
Yeah.
And
Well, he left Shinra because of their misdeeds.
yeah,
so.
exactly. So I would like to.
Is it called Stockholm Syndrome, is it?
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's a little bit of that where,
especially when you lock her in a cabin in the wood,
Yeah. Yeah, but you like start to fall in love with your captor, like that kind of stuff. Like that's how I see it.
You're just talking about Haney and I.
Yeah, that's exactly Chris and I's relationship now, as Chris just keeps me chained to this desk.
Oh my god.
But
you're like, I want to be free, but I don't.
yeah,
You love it, Haney.
Because I want to be with you, Chris.
Of course.
I want to be with you.
I have a lot of hopes around expansion around just anything around the Shinra backstory too. Just like what wars they waged, how that company came to be would be really cool. Like who was the founder of Shinra? Like, is it the current president Shinra, or was it his great grandfather? You know, who knows, right? I don't know, at least. There's just more stuff around how Shinra got from where it was to where, or from the way back past to where it is in OG. That would be very cool to learn more about. And just to learn about how they like went from being a power company to a, pseudo government with a paramilitary wing. Like that's another big step that they took. Like, and obviously, you can infer like, oh, well, they control the one source of power in the world.
Yeah, they do.
Mako energy. So because they control that, they control everything. And like, that's cool and all, but how did they get to that point, of controlling that? Yeah.
Mostly burning down small towns and putting Mako generators.
I have heard that.
On top of their mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, sounds good. You have an awesome time in front of you.
I'm very excited.
Or a very disappointing time. We don't know.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Hard to say.
Join us on the First Encounter podcast to find out, and then come over here to. Sorry, I'm done. Never mind.
Join us in 4 years.
Yeah. Listen to us first, then come back to the reunion podcast. I was gonna to when you guys come back.
I was gonna start going down that chain, and then I was like, no.
But we don't know when you guys are gonna be done.
Exactly.
So stay tuned. Like next year. Like I don't.
Who knows?
Oh,
hopefully,
I'm sure it'll be about as long as the development of the game took.
Oh boy.
Settle in.
We might not even be making this podcast at that time.
You'll have to start it again just to have us back.
Please.
Yeah. The reunion of the reunion podcast.
I love it. Amazing.
Fantastic.
So Chris, any changes that you wanted in Remake from the original?
Oh boy, what a weird perspective to take. I don't know how to sidestep things having played the remake at this point.
It's hard, yeah.
Yeah, but just think about like before you played it, like were there any changes that you wanted from the original?
I think yeah, I think I'm kind of where Hanny is right now, where I was most wanting things to stay the same in certain regards. Like definitely the characters are so perfect and like untouchable for me.
Yes.
I wouldn't want anything like that to change. Wall market I was definitely curious about. For sure. I think the world map, I was pretty interested in seeing a more open world. Like I really like what they did in 12 without saying too much about that.
Right.
More even than I did 15. So more of an open world kind of aspect, but still locked into certain, I guess, regions, if that makes sense.
Kind of a guided open world, so to speak.
Yeah.
I could see that being cool.
Yeah.
I was just interested to see how they were going to go about doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, I was trying to keep my expectations really far away from development so I could just kind of experience it. I didn't want to put too much hope on it.
A lot of questions I had long before it came out was how would they handle all those vehicles, like the buggy, the tiny Bronco, the high wind, the submarine, all those things, and thought racked my brain for how could they do it technically, that it would still be kind of in line with the original and stuff, and it was really fun to think about, to come up with solutions that might come to pass, might not. Who knows?
One thing that I wouldn't say I wish they changed, but I was really curious about how they were going to incorporate summons into it. Right. Because definitely in the OG, you can see the scale of a summon versus like the combat model is so completely different. And how do you fit that kind of into a combat system?
It's wildly different in Crisis Core too, like from the one summon we've seen, where it's like, oh, like it's the same size as me almost, like maybe a little taller, but.
So how are they going to do that? How are they incorporating that into the game?
Also the weapons.
Weapons, yeah.
Like 10-story building, tall things or something.
Oh, weapons, capital weapons.
Yeah, the weapons, like the capital ones. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Capital W weapons. Sorry, that took me like a few minutes to understand. Yeah.
Apologies, I should have been more precise.
I thought you were still going off about the inability to upgrade weapons, and I was like, yeah, that'd be cool too.
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, that's Kai's baby with upgraded weapons. Right. I didn't mind back then.
Yeah. The weapons, how they incorporate something so massive in scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I didn't really want that much changed. I was just interested to see more like what they were going to do, if they were going to add new characters. How are they going to flesh these stories out like even more, maybe? Like I don't know, but I really wanted to experience even more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And with these characters, and also like with the music as well, you know, like what were they going to do with the music? Like how was it going to sound? Like I didn't know. Obviously I have some idea, you know what I mean? And I've been to the Final Fantasy, like a Distant World orchestra performance multiple times, which, you know, plays original Final Fantasy VII music with an orchestra. So I had an idea, but I wasn't sure like things were going to be changed or adapted, or if we were going to get new music tracks or, you know, just new things. And that was what I was I guess excited for. Like I wasn't sure going into it, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Not necessarily anything changed outside of like the weapons and being upgradable and stuff like that. I wanted that, and just some quality of life updates, I guess, like things that, you know, were kind of annoying to deal with that hopefully with the, you know, progress of technology up until now, they were able to actually like fix those things going into it, like the translations, or I don't even know what else is there that was annoying. I don't know.
Chocobos.
Just like menu issues as well. Like once you have so many materia, and you have master materia, master materia or whatever, and you have, you know, it's like a lot of menus to go through. And I was just interested to see like what are they going to do with like all of that. Anyway. But yeah.
Definitely.
Good point. Yeah.
One thing, I'm going to ask you to speculate on this, Annie, actually.
How dare you? This isn't your show.
Well, one of the things that I already said I was nervous about was the combat system changing very much.
Yeah.
Because I was scared of losing control of a party. I really enjoy that about turn-based combat or the active time battle or what have you. But you want something more action-based. So how do you feel about incorporating multiple party members into a combat that is purely action based?
So this is like sacrilegious what I'm about to say, and
Uh-oh.
I am not a huge fan of having a party because I can barely comprehend
You
controlling
monster.
one character at a time. So to me, what would be cool is a system where your other characters do kind of their own thing to assist you, similar to like if you have
Kingdom Hearts.
yeah, like Kingdom Hearts or the kid in God of War, how he kind of just like
Mm.
does his own thing off to the side, if I
Mm.
remember right. Where they are there to actively help and like do stuff and like are still cool, but you don't have to like worry about them in mid combat. But
Okay.
that also does kind of easy mode it a little bit, especially with like healing and revives and stuff like that. So I'm not entirely sure what to expect from the combat system, but if it's done well, I could see being okay with a departure from a party system.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can feel the coldness through the microphones from three people just giving me the cold shoulder all at once.
So would you then want to basically cloud be Sora and solo everything and have everyone in tow, or how would you go about this with control?
Yeah, I like the idea of having just controlling the main character and having everyone else in tow kind of control themselves and do their own thing where you don't have to worry about them.
Barrett, control yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just why don't you just heal me, okay? Just stay back and heal me. But it could be cool to also set them to like a class system where you're like, okay, like I want you to be like DPS, so like you're going to do like your own thing, but you're going to focus on causing damage, or you're going to focus on tanking and like soaking damage, and you're going to focus on like healing and stuff like that. Like I think that modicum of control would be pretty cool. But yeah, I think just being able to focus on Cloud would be pretty interesting.
Interesting.
But I'm also the kind of person who has trouble controlling more than one character, so keep that in mind.
So would you say that was one of the challenges, I guess, of playing the original game, was that you had to kind of give commands to multiple members, like party members, you know what I mean, at any given time?
Yeah, I had to think about stuff, which is super difficult for me. I'm very reactive. I just do. So like actually having a strategy and thinking was really, really painful. I don't think I had a balanced party until the very last fight. Is that right, Chris?
I wouldn't go that far, but how rewarding was it when your party all clicked together the way you wanted it
was
to?
Pretty good 70 hours into the game. Yeah.
Yeah. But that, I feel that adds an element to it though, because it's more of a strategy, like strategic way of thinking, where it's like, what kind of enemy am I up against? Like what magic spells or whatever are going to be more, effective against this type of enemy, and who has those abilities like in the party to be able to do those things that you need, because each one has a specific role really, which for me, like that's compelling about the battle system about the original, because I like that. I like to kind of, and also be punished maybe and not like, and have to redo it multiple times because I'm learning, like it forces you to
like
learn,
the reward
right?
of success.
Yeah. But with like Final Fantasy is like 7 in particular, I'm okay with that, and I will retry it and everything like that. I don't know if you've played like the Souls games. That to me is extremely punishing. Like it's even more punishing. I don't have a party to deal with, but I'm still attacking, the enemy, and I have to learn his patterns or whatever. But it almost gets me to the point where it's like I want to quit playing the game and I don't actually want to go back to it, which is what happened when I played Bloodborne, where it broke me, and I'm like, I need some time away from this game
fair.
before I go back to it to try again, and I didn't let it beat me, like I beat that game and I was like, you didn't break me. Like, I finished it.
You persevered.
Yes, exactly.
Got him.
So yeah, I think that's super interesting. But it could be your background with like MMOs where, I don't play MMOs, so I'm assuming you don't have another party member to kind of control. It's just you, and you have all these spells, but you're playing it with all of these other people.
Right.
So they might have all different roles, but you're just controlling yourself, right? So you have to worry about yourself. So that does make sense. Like I can see, how you would like that, like gravitate more towards that.
Yeah, and I haven't played a lot of RPGs, JRPGs in particular, with parties in a long, long time, aside from FF7. So my other video game stuff that I play is pretty solo adventure kind of thing. So like, or not necessarily an adventure game, but I'm making my own path, just me, not really worrying about other party members. So like I play like right now I'm like obsessed with Stardew Valley, which is just you by yourself, kind of doing your own thing. Before this I was playing the new Jedi Fallen Order, which which is phenomenal, right? But it's again, not really a party. It's just you, controlling. Controlling what's his face? Caleb? I can't remember his name. But yeah, like
I don't remember either.
Yeah.
Cal something.
Cal.
Cal.
Yeah. So like, there's that. Like I'm just playing a lot of games that are very like not party based. So I could see it being. I think I'll just have to wait and see before I can really commit to it. You're swaying me. All of y'all are swaying me. It's also the fear of peer pressure. So.
Oh gosh.
You're gonna be shocked, Haney, when the remake is just in FPS.
Gotta get my clicks. My clicks per minute up.
Please.
Oh my god. Yeah, but I do appreciate what you said about God of War, like similar to that, where you have his son and he's Atreyu or whatever, and he's doing his own, like you're issuing things to him or you're whatever, like to shoot or whatever, but you're not like in full control.
Yeah, you're like, oh, like do this from over here,
over there.
Yeah,
I can just issue commands.
Yeah, which could also be really interesting too, because it still gives you some control over your party member.
Marlene is Atreyu.
Yo, Marlene just
and Barrett is the FPS guy.
Just Marlene making drinks as potions in the background.
Excellent.
Oh my god. Yeah, imagine. Wow.
I guess that's what I wanted that I never knew I wanted until now.
You're welcome.
That's what I want from a remake.
Glad we got to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
Barrett carries a whole bar on his shoulder where Marlene sits in it and concocts drinks and all stuff, and just hands it over to Barrett when he's low in health and stuff, and he's just mowing all the enemies down in FPS style, Doom style. Yeah.
Barrett Eternal.
Just heavy rock music over all the OG tracks.
Yes.
I really wanted like a Final Fantasy VII like dating sim, like where Scarlet or kind of like a dominatrix kind of like that.
Just give us the game we want,
mean?
Square. Stop playing with us.
FF7 visual novel.
Welcome to Scarlet's new minigame in Wall Market.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Kai brought me there.
Oh boy, yeah.
It's like Dream Daddy, but like Final Fantasy.
Yes.
Absolutely,
I mean? Yes.
It's like you see Tifa, and oh god, she's broken. She's got a lot of baggage, It's like, oh, but you're gonna date and she's really nice, I mean, she's gorgeous. Let's just start with that.
Takes you back to her place
about her
to
daddy,
show you the proud Claude.
She's got some daddy issues. Maybe you pick who you want to go, like who you are, like whether member of the party, and then you're going around dating the other member. Ooh, come on! I got it. This is a great idea. Although all of the shipper internet will be self-destruct.
Will collapse in itself. Yeah, black hole.
Listeners, if you want this, help fund us the first reunion project.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh my god. And yes, you can take Red 13 out on a date. You can.
Give me Boogan.
I also want Boogan.
But there's no hanky-panky, okay? No hanky-panky.
I want to take Boogan out.
Just a date.
Just the first date.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Why couldn't you pick Sid or Red 13 or Vincent or someone on a date?
IRS.
Seriously.
IRS Square.
Yeah. I mean, they did have a dating sim in the OG anyway.
Yeah,
so
kind
come on,
of.
just port it
only
over.
4 characters.
I'm still mad that I didn't
Oh
get
my
Barrett.
God.
Catchy.
Next time.
Yeah.
Next
Yeah,
time.
I was really upset.
Yeah. Did you try?
No,
like,
I
the
didn't
whole-
know
whole
it was.
time,
I didn't
or-
know it was doable.
I
I
see,
found
I
out
see, okay.
after.
I didn't tell him the mechanics of.
Ah, good.
Yeah, so if I had known I think he didn't tell me because he knows I would have cheesed it so hard to get Barrett.
Yeah.
I don't want you being mean to the rest of the party.
I know. I also that's the other thing is I can't be
Yeah.
mean to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
know.
just lump
I'm the
drunk.
Same way.
Aerith is lump drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
When it gives you the option to be good or bad, I'm always
Yeah.
good. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
Those
same.
games where it's just like, ooh, you want to do this? It's like, I know I can just shoot this person or run them over with my car or whatever else, but like, I don't really want to do that, you know?
No,
'Cause
this
what,
is
like, what does
just
that say
mean.
about me
Yeah.
as a person? Like, I have issues. Like, you know, if that's what I'm doing, it's like,
That was an interesting addition to the remake, the Grand Theft Auto aspect.
oh
I didn't expect
shush.
that.
Yeah.
that's true. Actually,
Yeah, and in Wall Market, you know those honeybees, you can just whistle and one comes into your car and then it's action time.
Yeah.
God.
I've never played.
and you can just
Grand
drive
Theft Auto.
through, you know. That game's got really good ragdoll physics, you know? Like once you
Yeah.
drive
Yes.
over them with your car throughout Wall Market, everybody's
Yep.
just flying everywhere,
God.
screaming at
Yeah.
the top of their lungs. Cloud's driving in his dress.
Johnny screaming.
The wig is off and sitting
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
front
Exactly.
seat.
All right, guys. So that concludes today's episode. I just wanted to say a huge thank you so much for coming on our episode here today to First Encounter Podcast, Chris and Hanny. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down to talk about, you know, Final Fantasy VII and a little bit about Remake, and hopefully we didn't spoil too much for you.
To be determined. Thank you for having us, though.
This was incredible. Thank you so much for indulging us for so long.
3 hours is nothing for us.
We can't wait to have you guys back, and it'll be super interesting to see, you know, your thoughts and opinions about Remake after you've played it, Hanny. So, you know, we're definitely looking forward to having you guys back in the future.
Absolutely.
It's like Hanny's growing up right in front of us.
Aw.
Right in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, this was amazing. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So if you have any ideas for our next episode, you can write us. It's thereunionpodcast@gmail.com, thereunionpodcast@gmail.com. We do have a Discord server, so the link for our Discord server is listed in the description of each episode. So go ahead, join our Discord server, and continue the incredible conversations that we have about Final Fantasy VII and VII Remake. You can check us out on Twitter. It's @reunion_podcast. We do have a Facebook page. It's Reunion Podcast. And our YouTube channel is The Reunion Podcast, and we do post all of our audio-only videos there on YouTube for you to be able to check out. So Vyzz, did you want to drop your socials?
Oh, sure, yeah. It's pretty short. It's @CC_observatory on Twitter, where we post, of course, all the new videos that come out, some CCO gems like small analyses or stuff. A little bit less lately because of reasons, but main content is, of course, on YouTube. It's Cosmo Canyon Observatory, easy to find, and all the links to everywhere is also there in the description and on the page on the banner. So yeah, just find us there. We also have a Discord. The link is in all descriptions and on the YouTube page as well. So please find us there and chat away in all those multitude of channels we have there for everything.
All right, Chris and Hanny, did you want to drop your socials for First Encounter Podcast and anywhere you would like our listeners to check out your amazing content?
Yeah, so if you want to hear any more from Chris and I, check out the First Encounter Podcast. We're on basically every streaming service that I'm aware of for listening to things, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, most podcatchers, etc. You can also listen at firstencounterpodcast.com. We also have a Patreon for our bonus content / our FF7 compilation work, and that can be found at patreon.com/firstencounter, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. Yeah, nice. And then you can find us on Twitter at 1STEncounterPod, or just type in First Encounter Podcast, I guess. Other than that, I just wanted to say, Vyzz, Kai, thank you so much for having us on the reunion. It was an absolute blast. I'm so glad I got to hang out and chat a little bit with some big Final Fantasy fans like yourselves. It feels really cool to be at this point with my relationship to Final Fantasy where I can do this.
You're very welcome. Was also fun to have you both on.
This was a blast.
Absolutely.
I feel like it's been long in the making.
Definitely.
This was a lot of fun.
Very worth it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, can't wait to come back and talk about Remake as soon as we can.
We're saying, looking forward to that. Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So much.
All right, guys. So this is Kai. I am signing off. All the best to all of you.
Yeah. Stay safe and take care, everyone.
Bye.